Hey guys, tonight we're going to wander into something very different, and maybe a little stranger than usual. We're not heading back into cold castles or muddy villages this time. Instead, we're stepping into the lives of the first people on this continent, and what it really meant to live with the plants, roots, and brews that could twist the edges of reality. Forget the tie-dye shirts, music festivals, and 1960s counterculture posters you've probably seen. Long before that, psychedelics were already woven into daily life, medicine, and spirituality. And if you were dropped into that world with your modern brain and your modern stomach, chances are you wouldn't last very long. So, before you settle in, take a second to make yourself comfortable. Dim the lights, maybe grab a blanket, and let the hum of whatever background noise you've got carry you along. If you enjoy these slow journeys into uncomfortable parts of history, remember to like the video and subscribe. And in the comments, let me know where you're tuning in from. I always find it fascinating to see who's listening from deserts, forests, or cities that didn't even exist when the first vision quests were happening. Tonight, you're about to open your eyes in a place where the walls of reality don't always stay still, and the voices you hear aren't always from other people. There are no pharmacies, no psychiatric manuals, and no neat little capsules you pick up at the corner store. There are plants, mushrooms, vines, and cacti, and each one carries a reputation older than most of the empires you've ever read about. And when you use them, you don't just see colours or shapes. You meet gods, animals, and sometimes your dead relatives. Whether that sounds fascinating or terrifying depends on how ready you are to walk into a world where nature itself decides if you're welcome. Congratulations! You've just woken up in a camp hundreds of years ago, before highways, before skyscrapers, before the endless buzz of machines. The air is sharp and filled with wood smoke. Somewhere nearby, a fire still burns from last night, the ash glowing faint red under the dark sky. You're alive, but you're not exactly sure what day of the week it is, because weeks aren't really a thing here. What matters is the season, the hunting, the plants that are blooming, and whether you're strong enough to handle what the elders might soon place in your hands. You open your eyes to a morning that doesn't sound like your usual alarm clock or the vibration of your phone. There's no calendar reminder telling you to get up. Instead, what shakes you awake is the faint crackling of wood, the slow rise of smoke drifting from a fire someone tended long before you stirred, and the weight of a world that is quieter than anything you've probably experienced in your life. There's no hum of traffic, no airplanes overhead, no refrigerator kicking on in the background. The only sounds are the wind moving through branches, the shuffle of feet across dirt, and maybe the low voice of someone chanting a few words you don't understand. You blink, and instead of drywall or ceiling fans, you're staring at the inside of a shelter built from poles, bark, or animal hide stretched tight. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke, earth, and sweat. It's not perfume, it's not scented candles. It's just what life smells like here. And in this place, there's no artificial separation between you and nature. The fire you're smelling has been burning all night, because warmth isn't optional, it's survival. The ground beneath you is uneven, and your bed is a simple mat woven from reeds or fur, which feels both softer and rougher than you expected. No mattress tags to rip off. No ergonomic pillows designed by scientists. Just layers of nature put together in a way that keeps you alive. You're not alone, you never really are, Around you, people are waking up slowly, children stirring under blankets of fur, an older man coughing into the morning air, a woman moving toward the fire to stir whatever is left of the last meal. Privacy isn't really a thing here. You exist in a community that breathes together, works together, and sleeps in ways that keep everyone close. There are no locks on doors, because there aren't really doors. Safety is found in numbers and trust, not in bolts and security systems. And if you think you can sneak away to check your emails or scroll quietly on your phone, forget it. None of that exists. All you have is the moment, the people around you, and the land outside waiting to decide what kind of day you'll have. When you step out, the light is sharp and natural, not filtered through glass. The sun rises over trees or desert ridges, casting shadows that stretch for miles. There's no smog, no power lines cutting across the horizon, just pure open air that feels both endless and intimidating. And yet, despite the beauty, you're not exactly relaxed. Because here, survival doesn't take weekends off. The ground is hard, your body is stiff, and every task requires movement. There's no running water, no grocery store, and no convenience of tapping your credit card to make your hunger disappear. You don't really eat unless someone hunted, gathered, or prepared something. And even then, meals are not guaranteed. Food is work, fire is work, water is work. But woven into that endless labour is something else. Something that feels different from the stress you know. Here the work isn't just for survival. It's for meaning. And sometimes that meaning comes from experiences that blur the line between waking and dreaming. Because in this world, you don't wake up thinking about deadlines or to-do lists. You wake up wondering if today might be the day you're taken to fast in the wilderness, or given a small bitter cactus button to chew, or handed a cup of dark, tangy brew that tastes like the ground itself. These aren't party favours. They aren't weekend experiments. They're doorways. They're tests. They're ways to connect with something larger than you. Something that doesn't care how many followers you have, or how good your Wi-Fi signal is. The people around you already know this. They've been raised on stories of visions and journeys. They have heard elders describe meetings with animals that spoke human words, ancestors who appeared in flames, and landscapes that bent and shifted into places not seen with ordinary eyes. For them, waking up isn't just about stretching your legs and rubbing your eyes. It's about being ready at any time for the possibility that today you'll be asked to confront your own mind, your own fears, and the spirits that move through everything. And that possibility carries weight. There's no pamphlet with side effects listed neatly in bullet points. No hotline to call if things get too strange. If you drink the tea or chew the cactus or bite into the mushroom, whatever happens next is yours to face. The land doesn't apologise, and neither do the spirits. You might see your dead grandmother smiling at you. You might feel like you've been swallowed whole by a serpent. You might relive every mistake you've ever made. Or you might return with a sense of peace so deep you can't even explain it. But no matter what, you can't tap out. You don't get to press stop. Once you begin, you finish. That's the rule. And as your bare feet step across the dirt, as you squint against the rising sun, you realise that this world is not waiting for you to feel ready. It moves at its own pace, guided by seasons, rituals, and needs older than history books. You're the newcomer here, a modern brain trying to squeeze into a reality that doesn't care about modern comforts. And if you think you're going to handle it all with the calm patience of a yoga retreat, think again. This is life with psychedelics before science, before laws, before anyone tried to package it up and sell it. It's raw, unpredictable, and in many ways more real than anything you've ever known. You're sitting by the fire, the morning smoke curling into your eyes, and someone places something in your hands. It's not bread, it's not a piece of meat, and it's definitely not your morning latte. It's a plant. Small, ordinary, maybe even ugly to your modern eyes. Rough skin, bitter smell, sometimes spines, sometimes a squishy little mushroom cap that looks like it belongs on a pizza. And here's the twist. You're expected to eat it, not because you're hungry, but because the people around you believe this thing can talk. Not in a cartoon voice, not with lips or lungs, but in the way it rearranges your brain and forces you to hear messages you didn't know were waiting. Welcome to the first plants that spoke. For the cultures who first worked with them, these plants weren't just chemicals waiting to be measured in a lab. They weren't reduced to acronyms like LSD, DMT, or psilocybin. They were living relatives, teachers, dangerous tricksters, and bridges to the spirit world. You didn't just use them the way you might use coffee to get through a Monday. You entered into a relationship with them, and sometimes that relationship was smooth. Sometimes it left you vomiting into the dirt, wishing you had just stayed home. But either way, the lesson was coming. Take peyote, for instance. To you it looks like a squat cactus, more like something you'd avoid stepping on in the desert than something you'd willingly chew. To the peoples of the Southwest, it was an ancient teacher. You sit in a circle, the night stretched out above you, stars pricking holes in the dark. Someone passes around small buttons cut from the cactus, bitter discs that you're supposed to chew slowly, the way you might chew through cardboard dipped in lemon juice. There's no sugar coating, no smoothie to blend it into, no capsules to swallow. Just you, your teeth, and the taste of earth so sour it makes your tongue recoil. You try to swallow without gagging, and everyone around you knows what's coming. The cactus is going to hit you hard, and when it does, you'll be seeing things you didn't ask for. But that's the point. In this world, you don't eat peyote to have fun or to trip. You eat it because it's going to strip you down. The visions aren't toys, they're lessons. You might see an eagle fly through your chest and tell you something about your future. You might feel yourself dissolve into the desert floor until you're nothing but sand. You might spend hours in a loop of nausea, purging everything you thought was important, until what's left is just your raw self. And when the elders ask you later what you saw, you'd better have paid attention, because if you didn't, if you treated it like a joke, the plant will remember. Then there are the mushrooms. In Mesoamerica, they weren't called drugs. They were called Teonanacatl, the flesh of the gods. Imagine biting into one of those little brown caps, not because you're at a music festival, but because this is the doorway to meet the divine. You're in a temple courtyard, torches flickering, drums echoing off stone walls. The priest isn't handing out wine, he's handing out mushrooms, and everyone around you is preparing to lose themselves in visions. You take a bite. It tastes earthy, damp, not like something you'd want seconds of. But within an hour, the walls around you begin to move. Patterns crawl across stone carvings. The jaguar carved in the corner suddenly steps out, and breathes hot air down your neck. The stars above you explode into rivers of light, and the people chanting beside you are no longer just people. They're half animal, half spirit, moving in ways that feel ancient and terrifying. And here's the thing, you're not supposed to laugh it off. In your world, mushrooms might be seen as recreational, a little side trip. Here they're serious business. You're expected to listen, to take the visions as truth. The gods speak through the fungi, and if the message is hard to hear, too bad. That's your burden now. You don't walk away saying, wow, that was trippy. You walk away saying, the gods showed me what I need to do, and now I have to carry it. That's a heavy thing to swallow, and not just because the mushroom tasted like damp soil. And then there's ayahuasca, the vine of the soul, deep in the Amazon. You don't stumble into it by accident. Someone prepares it for you, boiling vines and leaves together for hours. A brew so bitter it makes your stomach cramp before you've even swallowed it. You sip it from a gourd, the liquid thick and dark, like drinking concentrated forest floor. You try not to gag, but the taste lingers, clinging to your tongue. And then the waiting begins. At first, just nausea, a rolling discomfort that has you clutching your stomach. But soon, you're seeing serpents curling around your body, giant snakes with scales that shimmer like jewels. You hear voices that don't sound like your own thoughts. The forest seems alive in ways you never noticed. Every tree breathing, every insect glowing. And then you're vomiting. Everyone is vomiting. Buckets line the floor because no one escapes it. It's part of the process. Purging isn't an accident. It's the plant's way of cleaning you out, inside and out. You might call it medicine. They call it a teacher. The brew shows you things you didn't want to see. Your fears, your selfishness, the pain you've caused others. And if you survive the night, if you come back with some shred of clarity, you're considered lucky. Because some don't. Not everyone is strong enough to handle the weight of a talking plant that doesn't mince words. What ties all of this together is the idea that these plants aren't just things. They aren't objects. They aren't substances. They aren't hobbies. They're beings, relatives, spirits in physical form. And when you ingest them, you're not just altering your brain chemistry. You're letting them in. You're agreeing to a dialogue that you can't control. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they shout, sometimes they laugh at you until you're curled on the ground, crying. And all of it is considered part of the conversation. Now imagine stepping into this world with your modern mindset. You, who gets annoyed when your Wi-Fi drops for 30 seconds. You, who can't even handle your coffee order being wrong. Suddenly, you're asked to trust a cactus, a vine, or a mushroom with your entire sense of reality. There's no guarantee of good vibes, no safety net of Netflix to distract you if things get rough. It's just you, stripped down to nothing, and a plant that's older and wiser than you'll ever be. And if you can't handle it, well, too bad. That's on you. But to the people who lived this way, this wasn't strange. It was part of the rhythm of life. These plants weren't recreational. They were woven into ceremonies, healing, guidance, and survival. A hunter might take them to dream of where the buffalo will be tomorrow. A healer might use them to see what's making someone sick. A young person might be sent out to fast, to take the plant, and to return with a vision of who they're meant to be. And if they didn't return, if they lost themselves out there in the wilderness, that was considered part of the risk. Life didn't come with guarantees, and neither did the plants. So when you hear that these were the first plants that spoke, it isn't just a metaphor. It's literal in the sense that whole communities believed the plants had voices, had personalities, had rules. And if you broke those rules, if you disrespected the process, you paid for it. Maybe with sickness, maybe with madness, maybe with death. These weren't toys. They were conversations with forces bigger than yourself. And every bite or sip was like opening a door you weren't sure you could close again. And as you sit there, the taste still lingering in your mouth, the firelight flickering against your skin, you realise something important. In your world, silence is uncomfortable. You fill it with podcasts, playlists, endless scrolling. But here, silence is where the plants speak the loudest. You sit, you wait, and eventually, if you're patient enough, you hear them. Not in English, not in words you can record, but in feelings, visions, and truths that lodge in your bones. That's the first lesson. The plants don't care about your comfort. They care about teaching you. And that means stripping away everything you thought you needed until all that's left is your raw self staring back at you. And in this world, that's how life moves forward. You're sitting in the desert, and it's not the kind of desert you've driven through with the AC on high and a gas station slushy sweating in the cup holder. This desert is vast, quiet, and brutally honest. The ground crunches under your feet, not from gravel laid down by a road crew, but from sand and cracked earth that hasn't seen rain in weeks. The air is sharp, the sun unforgiving, and the horizon stretches out forever in every direction. There's no shade unless you count the occasional stubborn cactus or the twisted remains of a mesquite tree clinging to life. And somewhere in this endless landscape is a small, squat cactus that has shaped visions, ceremonies, and entire ways of understanding the world. It doesn't look like much. In fact, you might walk past it a dozen times without even noticing. No tall arms reaching to the sky, no dramatic flowers. Just a low green disc, round and plain, growing close to the ground, blending into the dust like it's trying not to be noticed. If you saw it, you might think it was a weed, or worse, you might try to kick it aside with your shoe. That would be a mistake. Because to the people who have lived in these deserts for centuries, that unassuming little cactus isn't just a plant, it's peyote. And peyote isn't quiet. Peyote talks, peyote shows, peyote teaches. Now imagine being handed one of these cactus buttons. It's been cut carefully, dried, maybe even passed down in preparation for this moment. Someone older, someone who knows more than you, has decided it's time. You don't just pop it into your mouth like a piece of candy. You chew, slowly, and the taste hits you immediately. Bitter, sour, earthy in the worst way. It's not like biting into lettuce or spinach. It's more like someone condensed dirt, bile and regret into a single bite and told you to swallow it. You gag. Your tongue recoils. You look around for water, something, anything to wash it down with. But that's not how this works. No chaser, no shortcuts. Just chew and swallow, until you're certain you've made a huge mistake. The others around you don't flinch. They've done this before, some of them dozens of times. Their faces are calm, even serene, as if they know the bitterness is just the beginning. You, on the other hand, feel like you've been tricked into eating poison. And in a way, you have. Because what's about to happen isn't a pleasant stroll through your imagination, it's a collision. Peyote doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door open, barges in, and rearranges the furniture of your mind without asking first. At first, it's subtle. The desert air feels heavier, thicker, like it's pressing against your skin. Colours start to shift, the dull tans and browns of the desert glowing brighter, sharper, almost alive. The patterns in the sand seem to move, curling into spirals, shapes that weren't there before. You blink, rub your eyes, try to focus, but the shapes just keep unfolding. And then it's not just the ground. The sky seems to ripple, the stars overhead no longer still points of light, but moving, breathing beings watching you. You try to steady yourself, but your stomach has other plans. The nausea comes in waves, rolling through your gut until you double over, sweating, groaning, clutching your side. You vomit. Hard. Onto the ground, into a bucket, wherever you happen to be leaning. And no one rushes to comfort you. No one pats your back or offers ginger tea. They just nod, because this is expected. Peyote cleans you out. It purges everything, and it doesn't care how messy it is. You wipe your mouth, humiliated, but when you look up, the world is no longer the same. Shapes shimmer in the firelight. The people sitting around you aren't just people anymore. Their faces shift, stretching into animal forms. An eagle here, a coyote there, eyes glowing in the night. The drumming begins, steady, unrelenting, like the heartbeat of the desert itself. Each thump echoes through your body until you can't tell if it's outside you or inside your chest. Someone sings, their voice long and wavering, words in a language you don't know but somehow understand in your bones. You close your eyes, and the darkness behind your eyelids explodes with patterns. Spirals, webs, stars, endless kaleidoscopes of colour that pulse in time with the drum. This is peyote. Not a party trick, not a hallucination to laugh about later, but a full-force immersion into a world layered on top of the one you thought you knew. And it's not just pretty lights, there's weight here, messages, lessons. You feel pulled towards something larger, a presence that seems to step out of the cactus itself and stand before you. Maybe it takes the form of an animal, maybe an ancestor, maybe just a towering figure made of light and sound. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's here, and it's speaking without words, pouring meaning into your mind, whether you want it or not. You realise quickly that this isn't optional. You don't get to negotiate with peyote. You don't get to ask for a lighter dose or a quick exit. Once you've swallowed, you're in. The desert has claimed you, and the cactus is your teacher now. And the thing about peyote teachers is that they don't care if the lesson hurts. They don't care if you're comfortable. They care about truth, about stripping away the lies you've been telling yourself until you're raw and exposed. You might be shown your worst mistakes. Relive them until you're sobbing. You might be forced to see the pettiness of your desires, the selfishness of your choices. Or you might be lifted, shown a vision so beautiful you can't even describe it. A sense of connection to the land, the stars, the people around you, the very bones of the earth. Either way, you're changed. Hours pass, though you have no sense of time anymore. The fire flickers, the drumming continues, the desert stretches on forever. You shift between nausea, awe, terror and peace, cycling through emotions faster than you thought possible. And through it all, peyote keeps talking. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it shouts. Sometimes it shows you nothing but darkness until you think you're lost, only to flood you with light the next moment. It's relentless, unyielding, but never meaningless. Every wave, every vision, every purge has a purpose, even if you don't understand it right away. For the people who have used peyote for generations, this is sacred. It's medicine, not in the sense of curing a headache, but in curing the soul. It's guidance, a way to find your path, to connect with ancestors, to understand your place in the vast web of existence. A hunter might use it to ask where the animals will be found tomorrow. A healer might use it to diagnose an illness, to see what ordinary eyes can't. A young person might take it as part of a ceremony to step into adulthood, to prove they can handle the visions and the truths that come with them. And here's the thing, you don't get to fake it. If peyote decides you're not ready, it'll chew you up. Some people come back shaken, broken, unable to face what they saw. Others come back stronger, carrying a vision that reshapes their entire life. Either way, it leaves a mark. You don't walk away unchanged. You don't walk away saying, that was fun. You walk away with a story, a scar, a responsibility. Now think about how out of place you are here. You, with your soft clothes, your sanitized water, your endless need for control. You think you can handle it because you've read about it online, maybe watched a documentary. But peyote doesn't care about your documentaries. It doesn't care about your expectations. It doesn't even care if you believe in it. It works on its own terms, and all you can do is hang on. The desert doesn't offer comfort. The cactus doesn't offer apologies. The fire burns, the drum beats, and the visions roll through you like waves you can't escape. And when the night finally begins to fade, when the first pale light of dawn creeps across the horizon, you're not sure if you survived or if you were remade. You're exhausted, hollowed out, and yet strangely alive, buzzing with a sense that the world is deeper, stranger, and more connected than you ever realized. That's peyote. Not a souvenir, not a curiosity, but a relentless mirror held up to your soul in the middle of a desert that has no interest in your comfort. It strips you down, shows you who you are, and dares you to face it. And whether you pass that test or not, that's between you and the cactus. You find yourself far from deserts and open plains now. The air is thicker, heavy with moisture that clings to your skin before you've even had the chance to take a full breath. You're in the jungle, and the jungle doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your bug spray, your air-conditioned hotels, or your favourite playlist to drown out the sound of cicadas. Here, everything buzzes, crawls and drips. Vines twist over branches. Leaves the size of your chest dangle overhead. And somewhere in the distance, a monkey is screaming at something you can't see. The ground is soft, wet, alive with things you don't want crawling onto your feet. Every step is a reminder that this place belongs to the insects, the snakes, the endless green. You're just a visitor, tolerated at best. And tonight, in the middle of this wild cathedral of noise and shadow, you've been invited to drink something that the people here have known for centuries. It's not a cocktail, it's not wine, and it's definitely not the kind of tea you order at a trendy cafe. This is ayahuasca, the vine of the soul, a brew so bitter and so unforgiving that even thinking about it makes your stomach twist. The preparation isn't fast. It doesn't come from a factory-sealed packet or a pre-mixed bottle. It's cooked. Hours of work, leaves stripped, vines cut, everything pounded, mashed, layered together in a pot that steams over a fire. The smell wafts thick into the air, earthy and pungent, like damp soil boiled down into liquid form. You watch it bubble and darken, and already you know your body isn't going to like it. The people making it aren't rushing. They're patient, careful, humming or chanting under their breath, as if every step requires the plant's permission. And in a way it does. By the time the brew is ready, the night has settled around you. The jungle is alive, louder than any city you've ever lived in, but in a different way. Not car horns or construction or sirens, but insects buzzing, frogs croaking, and the deep thrum of life that never shuts off. A small fire flickers in the clearing. Around it people sit, waiting. Some are silent, eyes down, already inward. Others murmur quietly, their voices blending with the sounds of the night. At the centre, the shaman moves slowly, carrying the brew in a gourd. He doesn't ask if you're ready. He doesn't hand you a waiver to sign. He just offers it. And now it's in your hands. The smell hits you first. Sharp, earthy, almost sour, like wet leaves mixed with iron. You lift the gourd, tilt it, and the liquid slides into your mouth. It's thick, heavy, and instantly revolting. You gag before you've even swallowed. The taste is sharp and bitter. Not the kind of bitter you get from black coffee, but the kind that makes your entire tongue recoil in protest. You swallow anyway. It burns slightly, and then it sits in your stomach like a stone. The others around you don't flinch. They've done this before. They close their eyes, breathe deeply, and wait. You, meanwhile, are already questioning every decision that led you here. The first wave is nausea. A rolling unease in your gut, subtle at first, then insistent, until you're clutching your stomach. Buckets have been set out for this exact reason. You lurch forward, and the purge begins. Violent, unrelenting, your body expelling everything as if it's desperate to eject the poison you just swallowed. You groan, spit, wipe your face, and glance around, embarrassed. But no one looks at you with pity. They nod, maybe even smile faintly, because this is the point. The purge isn't an accident. It's the plant cleaning you, stripping you of whatever you carried in with you. Pride, fear, anger, even last night's meal. It all comes up and out. And then it hits. The world shifts, tilts, bends. The flickering fire throws shadows that crawl across the ground and then climb into the air, twisting into shapes you can't quite name. The jungle hum rises, insects buzzing louder, frogs echoing in your skull. Every sound amplified until it feels like the entire rainforest is inside your head. You close your eyes to escape, but there's no escape. Behind your eyelids is an explosion of light and colour, patterns spinning, weaving, crawling over each other in endless motion. Spirals, serpents, jaguars, faces of people you know and people you don't, all rushing toward you, through you, into you. The visions don't wait for permission. They crash over you like waves. One moment you're floating above the trees, looking down at rivers glowing with light. The next you're swallowed by a giant snake, sliding down its throat into darkness. You feel your body dissolving, yourself unravelling. Panic claws at you. You want to fight it, to anchor yourself. But there's no anchor here. The plant has you, and you're not in charge. You're not even a guest. You're a student, and the teacher is ruthless. Time stops meaning anything. Minutes, hours, entire lifetimes blur together. You relive memories you thought you'd forgotten. Childhood, heartbreak, mistakes that claw at you from the past. You see them all, raw and unforgiving. You cry, shake, sweat, curse, plead. The jungle doesn't answer. The plant just keeps showing you, pushing you, forcing you to look. It's not subtle, it's not gentle, it's merciless. But then, somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, comes something else. A moment of stillness. A voice that doesn't sound like your own thoughts. It could be a whisper, soft and low, or a booming laugh that shakes you. Sometimes it's the voice of someone you knew who's long dead. Sometimes it's the voice of the forest itself. It doesn't matter how it comes. What matters is the message, and the message cuts straight through you. You see yourself not as you wish you were, but as you are. Flawed, scared, small. And then, strangely, loved anyway. You feel connected to the people around you, to the fire, to the trees, to the earth itself. It's overwhelming, terrifying, and yet oddly comforting. You're not separate anymore. You're part of something vast, endless, breathing all around you. For the first time, maybe, you feel the scale of existence. And it's too much. You laugh, you sob, sometimes at the same time. You're humbled, stripped, broken open. All around you, the ceremony continues. The shaman sings, his voice rising and falling in strange melodies. Words you don't know, but that vibrate in your chest like they've always been there. Rattles shake, drums thump, smoke drifts through the clearing. The sounds aren't just background noise. They guide the journey, pulling people back when they drift too far, pushing them deeper when they resist. You hear others crying, laughing, retching. Everyone is somewhere between life and death, between sanity and madness, each person fighting their own private war with the brew. And through it all, the jungle watches. Eventually the visions shift. What was terrifying becomes illuminating. What felt like punishment feels like release. You see patterns in everything. The veins of leaves, the flow of rivers, the curve of stars overhead. You understand things you couldn't explain in words even if you tried. Not facts, not trivia, but truths. That life is fragile. That death is not the end. That you are small but not meaningless. It doesn't make sense in the way you're used to, but it makes sense here, in the clearing, in the jungle, with the taste of bitterness still on your tongue. By the time the night edges toward dawn, you're exhausted. Your body is wrung out, your mind cracked open. You feel like you've lived 100 years in the span of a single night. The fire burns low, the song's quiet. Slowly the jungle's normal sounds return, and you realise you've survived. Barely. You're drained, hollow, but also lighter somehow, as if some weight you didn't know you were carrying has been scraped away. That's ayahuasca. Not a party favour, not a curiosity. A force. A teacher. A whisper from the jungle that's not always kind, but always honest. You don't walk away untouched. You walk away knowing something you didn't know before, whether you wanted to or not. And once it's inside you, it never really leaves. You wake up to a place that doesn't feel like your world at all. The ground is damp, the air heavy with the smell of rain-soaked soil, and in the distance, thunder rolls low across the sky. It's the kind of thunder that rattles your chest, makes you glance nervously at the horizon, and reminds you how small you really are. And this, fittingly, is the setting for a plant, or rather a fungus, that people here don't treat like a snack or a garnish. They treat it like a doorway to gods, to laughter, to terror, and to truths you never ask for. The mushrooms themselves look harmless enough. Small brown caps pushing up through the earth, fragile stems that snap easily between your fingers. If you stumbled across them while hiking, You might not even notice. Or if you did, you'd probably walk past, assuming they were just another forgettable piece of forest clutter. But to the people of Mesoamerica, these were no ordinary fungi. They called them Teonanacatl, the flesh of the gods. And when you eat the flesh of gods, you don't expect a gentle evening. You expect thunder. You expect power. You expect something you'll never be able to explain once it's over. You're not offered a plate. There's no polite garnish, no seasoning, no farm-to-table marketing brochure. A handful of mushrooms is placed before you, maybe dried, maybe fresh, and you're told to eat. The taste is not exactly pleasant. Earthy, rubbery, faintly sour, like chewing on the damp edge of a cardboard box that's been left in the rain. You choke it down, sip a little water to clear your throat, and then wait. The anticipation stretches on forever. You glance at the others sitting around you, calm, focused, their eyes half closed, as if they already know what's coming. You, meanwhile, feel like a kid about to ride a roller coaster that might not be inspected for safety. At first, nothing. Just the sound of rain dripping from the roof of the temple, or the leaves of the forest outside. Then the shift begins. Colours deepen. Shadows move when they shouldn't. Patterns creep along the stone walls. The floor beneath you seems to ripple, and when you glance up, the sky isn't just a sky anymore. It's alive, pulsing, rolling with light that dances in time with the thunder. You blink, rub your eyes, tell yourself it's just your imagination. But the mushrooms don't care about your imagination. They've already kicked the door open. Laughter comes first, bubbling up from somewhere you didn't know existed. At first it's nervous, awkward, the kind of laugh you let out when you don't know what else to do. But then it grows, swelling into full-blown fits, unstoppable, contagious. Everything is funny. The way someone's hair sticks to their forehead, the sound of your own hiccup, the fact that you're sitting on the ground, chewing fungus like it's the most normal thing in the world. You laugh until your stomach aches, tears stream down your face, and you collapse onto your side, gasping for air. And the others laugh too, their voices echoing in the temple, bouncing off the walls until it feels like the entire space is vibrating with joy. But then the thunder cracks again, louder this time, and the mood shifts. The laughter curdles into something else. Your skin tingles, the shadows deepen, and suddenly the room feels enormous, infinite, stretching far beyond the walls you thought were there. Faces appear in the stone carvings, eyes glowing, jaws moving as if they're speaking directly to you. You don't hear words, not the way you're used to, but you feel meaning pour into you. Gods, spirits, ancestors, they're here, and they're not whispering, they're booming. The thunder outside is nothing compared to the roar inside your skull. You try to steady yourself, but your body doesn't cooperate. Your arms feel like vines, your legs like roots digging into the earth. You're no longer sitting. You're part of the ground, part of the storm, part of everything. Panic claws at you. You want to stand up, to run, but where would you go? There's no escape from a mushroom that has already made itself at home in your bloodstream. You close your eyes, but that's worse. Behind your eyelids, an entire universe blooms. Spirals of fire, rivers of stars. Jaguars leaping from one glowing branch to another. You see people you've lost, standing there as clear as day, reaching out their hands. You want to touch them, but the moment you try, they dissolve into patterns, breaking apart into colours that swirl and crash until you're left sobbing on the floor. This is not a mild diversion. This is not a fun experiment. This is contact. The mushrooms are showing you gods, or maybe just the deepest corners of your own mind. Either way, the message is the same. You are not in charge here. You are small. You are breakable. And yet, you are part of something so enormous and so endless that even in your terror, you feel awe. The priests who guided these ceremonies didn't see it as a trip. They saw it as communion. The mushrooms weren't toys, they were sacraments. People consumed them to speak with gods, to receive visions that guided whole communities, to decide when to plant, when to hunt, when to fight, when to heal. The laughter wasn't just laughter. It was release, the stripping away of fear, until only joy remained. The thunder wasn't just thunder. It was the voice of the divine, reminding everyone of their place. You, stumbling and sweating in the corner, aren't just hallucinating. You're part of a ritual that carries centuries of weight, and it's not easy. The mushrooms don't hand you gentle affirmations. They don't say, "You're doing great, sweetie." They rip you open. They make you confront everything. Your fears, your shame, your grief, your arrogance. One moment you're flying through the sky, laughing at the absurdity of existence. The next you're curled into a ball, weeping into your hands, convinced you'll never escape the storm inside your head. And the people around you don't stop you, don't try to comfort you, and they let it happen because they know it's part of the process. You don't get the vision without the storm. Hours blur. Thunder rolls, laughter echoes, visions twist and fold. You lose track of who you are, what time it is, whether you're alive or dead. And in the middle of it all, clarity hits. Not in words you can write down, but in a knowing that settles into your bones. That you're part of a cycle. That life is fleeting but not meaningless. That death is not an ending but a doorway. You might not remember every image, every sound, but you'll never forget the feeling. The certainty that something bigger is out there, watching, speaking, laughing along with you. By the time the storm outside begins to fade, when the rain eases and the first light of morning cuts through the clouds, you're drained. Your body feels like it's been through a war. Your mind like it's been turned inside out. You're exhausted, hollow, and yet somehow lighter, freer. You look at the others, their faces lined with the same fatigue, the same faint glow, and you realise you've all just walked through the same fire. No one will ever talk about it directly, not in detail, because how could they? Words don't fit what happened here, but you all know. You all carry it now. That's the way of the mushrooms. They bring thunder, they bring laughter, they bring terror and awe in equal measure. You don't control it. You don't direct it. You just endure it. And if you're lucky, you come out the other side not just alive, but changed. The smell hits you before you even see it. Not the faint sweetness of a modern cigarette, not the sickly cloud hanging outside a bar door, but a raw, sharp scent that comes straight from leaves dried in the sun. Thick, pungent, alive in a way that makes your nose twitch and your eyes sting. This is tobacco, but not the tobacco you know from warning labels and nicotine patches. This is tobacco as it was long before factories and filters. Strong, sacred. Not for idle habits, but for speaking with gods, for healing the sick, for carrying words into the unseen. You watch as someone crumbles the leaves, the hands stained with the brown dust, movements deliberate, careful, almost ceremonial. To them this isn't just a plant, it's a bridge. When the smoke curls upward, it doesn't vanish into the air. It carries prayers, requests, conversations. Every puff is a message, every cloud a thread weaving this world to another. You might laugh at the idea, you with your associations of ashtrays and addiction statistics, but here in this place, no one laughs. Tobacco is serious. Tobacco demands respect. The first thing you notice is the strength. When they hand it to you, a tightly rolled leaf smouldering at the end, you take a cautious inhale. It burns your throat instantly. Your chest seizes. You cough, gag, eyes watering, lungs screaming. You think you've made a mistake? And you have, because you tried to treat it like a cigarette. This isn't designed for comfort. This isn't for mindless puffing while scrolling your phone. This is medicine. In some cases, a weapon. You choke again, doubled over, while the people around you calmly exhale thick streams of smoke that drift upwards into the night. Sometimes it isn't smoked at all. Sometimes it's snuffed. Powdered leaves blown directly into your nostrils until your head feels like it's on fire. Sometimes it's chewed. The bitter juices flooding your mouth, numbing your tongue, seeping into your blood. And sometimes, in the most intense ceremonies, it's drunk. Thick, tar-coloured liquid brewed from the leaves and swallowed in gulps that almost guarantee you'll vomit. The purge is the point. The sickness is the cleansing. The plant scours you from the inside out, dragging poison and darkness with it. And when you're shaking on the floor, sweat dripping down your back, stomach empty, they tell you you're clean now. The pipe is sacred. You don't light it casually, don't pass it around as a party favour. The pipe is a contract. When the bowl glows and the smoke rises, it's as if the world shifts. The stem itself is often carved with care, sometimes from stone, sometimes from wood, polished, decorated, marked with symbols that mean far more than decoration. You don't just put your lips to it and inhale. You hold it carefully, you lift it deliberately, and you know that once you do, your words are being carried straight to the ones listening beyond. The fire is alive. The smoke is alive. And you're just borrowing them for a moment. In healing rituals, tobacco is blown across the body. Not inhaled, not swallowed, but exhaled deliberately onto the skin, into the air, around the person in need. The smoke wraps them, cleanses them, shields them from unseen forces. A healer might puff it over a wound, into someone's hair, or into the space above their chest, sealing them in a protective cloud. To you, it looks strange, maybe even silly. But to them, it's protection. The difference between sickness and survival. Tobacco drives out what doesn't belong. And if you mock it, if you refuse it, the people here would see you as foolish, even reckless. And then there's the sheer potency. This isn't the mild stuff bred for addiction and profit. This is wild tobacco, raw and strong, carrying enough nicotine to make your head spin in seconds. You feel dizzy after just a few pulls, vision swimming, stomach lurching. You grip the earth beneath you, steadying yourself, but the world tilts anyway. You feel hot, then cold, then light-headed. The plant is inside you now, coursing through your blood, hammering at your brain. You don't get to ignore it. You don't get to treat it like background noise. It demands your full attention. It's not always pleasant. Sometimes it makes you vomit, hard. Sometimes it makes you tremble, sweat pouring off your skin. Sometimes it drops you into visions so vivid you forget where you are, showing you animals, ancestors, gods, all wrapped in swirling clouds of smoke. And when it's over, when the sickness passes, you're left hollow, shaky, but clear. You feel scraped clean, as if something heavy has been lifted off your chest. You might hate every second of it, but you can't deny that something happened. Something undeniable. Something you'll never forget. For many tribes, tobacco isn't just part of rituals, it's part of everyday life. You light a pipe to seal an agreement, to make peace, to mark the seriousness of words spoken. You offer smoke to the spirits before a hunt, asking permission, asking forgiveness, asking for success. You leave tobacco at sacred sites, sprinkle it on the ground, place it in water, always as an offering, always as a sign of respect. To you, it's a plant. To them, it's currency, prayer, connection, life itself. Now think about how ridiculous you would look here, stumbling in with your modern notions. You, who thinks of tobacco as a pack of cigarettes in a gas station. You, who imagines nicotine patches and grim warning labels. You take a puff and collapse into coughing fits, eyes streaming, while everyone else sits calmly, exhaling slow, steady streams of smoke, as if they're in conversation with the night sky. They don't see addiction. They see relationship. They don't see weakness. They see responsibility. You feel nauseous and lightheaded, desperate for water, while they nod, knowing the plant is teaching you a lesson you weren't ready for. The thing about tobacco here is that it doesn't exist to make you feel good. It exists to remind you that you're small, that you're fragile, that you're connected. It humbles you with its strength, cleans you with its sickness, and ties you to forces you don't understand. You don't get to walk away and say, "It was just smoke." The smoke stays with you, heavy in your lungs, heavy in your memory. And the next time you see a cigarette back in your world, you'll know how far it has fallen from what it once was. You're sitting on the ground, and before you is an object that doesn't look like much at first glance. A pipe. Not the kind you picture stuffed with flavoured tobacco at some novelty shop. Not the Sherlock Holmes prop from old movies. Not even the corncob pipe your great uncle might have puffed on. This one is carved with care, polished by hands that knew exactly what they were making. The bowl is stone, smooth, heavy, sometimes inlaid with markings that aren't there for decoration but for meaning. The stem is wood, long, straight, sometimes wrapped in fur or feathers, sometimes plain. When the two pieces join, it isn't just a tool anymore. It's a presence. And here's the first thing you learn. You don't just pick it up. You don't wrap your fingers around it because you're curious, or because you want to see how it feels. The pipe is alive in its own way. It's treated with reverence, touched only at the right times, with the right intentions. To lift it casually would be like snatching a chalice during Mass and swirling the wine around to check the legs. Wrong, deeply wrong. You sit still, hands in your lap, while someone older and wiser places the pieces together. The bowl meets the stem, the union sealed with care, and suddenly everyone around you shifts. The air feels heavier, charged. This isn't just a pipe anymore. It's a contract. The fire glows, smoke curls upward, and the pipe is lit. Not with a cheap lighter flicked open in a rush, but with embers carried carefully, placed slowly, coaxed into flame. The first breath isn't for pleasure, it's for connection. The smoke is drawn in, held, then released not into lungs, but into the world. Toward the sky, toward the earth, toward the directions. Each breath is an offering, a thread weaving human voices with the spirits. You watch the smoke curl upward and vanish. But here it doesn't vanish. It travels. It carries words, prayers, promises. The pipe moves slowly, passed with both hands, held carefully, never rushed. When it reaches you, you freeze. You've seen people smoke before. Cigarettes flicked carelessly. Cigars waved around like status symbols. But this isn't that. You're being handed something sacred, something that carries centuries of weight. Your palms sweat. Do you hold it wrong? Do you inhale? Do you cough like an amateur? The people around you wait, calm, patient, but you feel every pair of eyes watching. You raise the pipe, awkward, unsure, and take a tentative breath. The smoke fills your mouth, bitter, sharp. Nothing like the filtered smoothness of modern tobacco. You try to swallow it into your chest and immediately regret it. Your lungs seize, your throat burns, and you're coughing, eyes watering, while everyone else continues calmly, unfazed. You've just learned your second lesson. The pipe isn't about you. It doesn't bend itself to your comfort. It doesn't care about your skill level. You're here to learn respect, not to look good. So you recover, hold the stem more firmly, and this time you exhale carefully, deliberately, sending the smoke upward. And now you understand why they call it the breath of spirit. It's not about intoxication. It's about sending something unseen into the world. Something more than the chemicals in the plant. Something carried beyond what you can see. The pipe is more than personal use. It's communal. You don't keep it to yourself. You don't puff until you're lightheaded. You take your breath, you send it out, and then you pass it on. Each person adds their own breath, their own prayer, until the smoke rising above you feels thick with meaning. A living tapestry woven from dozens of voices. And when it's done, when the bowl is empty and the last threads of smoke fade into the night, the pipe is cleaned, disassembled, placed away with care. You don't stub it out. You don't toss it aside. You close it like a book that isn't finished, a story that will continue the next time it's opened. There's weight in every part of this. The stone bowl isn't just stone. Often it comes from specific quarries, places considered sacred themselves, where taking the material is an act of prayer in its own right. The stem isn't just wood. It's chosen carefully, sometimes decorated with feathers, fur, beads, not for decoration but for meaning, for identity, for connection to specific animals or clans. When bowl and stem meet, it isn't casual. It represents union, earth and sky, male and female, body and spirit. You thought it was just a pipe, but here it's an entire cosmology held in two simple pieces. And it isn't just for ceremonies under the stars. The pipe seals agreements. Imagine two groups on the edge of war, distrust thick in the air. Words are exchanged, promises made, but none of it means anything until the pipe is lit. Each side breathes the smoke, sends their words upward, binding themselves to the spirits as witnesses. You can lie to another human. You don't lie with the pipe. Because if you do, the betrayal isn't just political, it's spiritual. The spirits heard you, and the punishment won't come from your enemies. It'll come from the world itself. You sit there, uneasy, realizing how shallow your own promises often are. You agree to terms and click accept without reading. You say I'll be there, and cancel with a text. But here, when you hold a pipe, every word is bound, carried upward, permanent. There's no backspace key, no edit button. The smoke has already left, and it won't come back. You swallow hard, suddenly aware that this little object in your hands carries more gravity than any document you've ever signed. Healing, too, is bound to the pipe. In some places, The smoke is blown deliberately onto the sick, onto the wounded, onto the weary, each breath a layer of protection, each puff a shield. A healer holds the pipe steady, inhales deeply, then exhales over the body, marking the person with invisible threads of smoke that bind them to recovery. To you, it looks abstract, even theatrical, but to them, it's as real as medicine in a bottle. And when you see the seriousness in their eyes, the absolute conviction in their movements, you start to understand that maybe your skepticism isn't as solid as you thought. And then there's the physical toll. The tobacco used here isn't weak, watered down, industrial leaf. It's wild, potent, loaded with nicotine, strong enough to make your head spin after just a few breaths. You feel it immediately: dizziness, heat, a sudden sweat dripping down your back. Your stomach flips. You grip your knees, trying to steady yourself, and the thought crosses your mind that you might be about to faint. Around you, no one flinches. They've been here before. They know the plant will push, will test, will remind you that it's not to be handled casually. You fight the nausea, breathe slowly, and the world tilts but holds. You survive. Barely. You think about your own world, where smoke is something you're told to avoid, where warnings plaster every pack, where public spaces ban even the faintest whiff. Here it's the opposite. Smoke isn't pollution, it's prayer, it's presence. You cough and gag, but the people around you see power, respect, connection. You're reminded again how out of place you are. By the time the ceremony winds down, the fire glowing low, the pipe disassembled and set aside, you're drained. Your head is light, your throat raw, your body buzzing. But there's something else too. A strange calm. A sense that you've touched something you can't quite name. You don't fully understand it, and maybe you never will. But you've seen how a simple act, breathing smoke through a carved piece of stone and wood, can become an entire conversation with the universe. And that realization sits heavy in your chest long after the last curl of smoke has disappeared into the night. You're told it's time, and no, you don't get a choice. You don't get to argue, pull out your phone, and say you're busy this weekend. This isn't a weekend retreat with a schedule printed out on recycled paper. This is your life, and the elders have decided you're ready. Or at least, they've decided you need to be ready. You're going on a vision quest. And that means leaving behind the warmth of the fire, the comfort of food, and the reassuring noise of other people. It means walking out into the wilderness with nothing but yourself and the faint hope that the spirits will show up before hunger does. The instructions are simple enough, though they sound like torture. You will fast. You will go without food. You will stay alone. You will wait. That's it. No snacks hidden in your bag. No water bottle tucked away for emergencies. No protein bar for when the stomach growls too loud. Just you. Your body slowly burning through its reserves, and the land itself pressing in on every side. To you, this sounds like punishment. To them, it's preparation. If you want a vision, if you want to know who you are, if you want the spirits to bother with you at all, you have to prove you can endure emptiness first. You walk out, guided to a spot chosen carefully, usually somewhere away from the camp, away from the noise, away from anything familiar. It could be a ridge overlooking endless trees. It could be a clearing deep in the forest. It could be a patch of open prairie where the sky stretches forever and makes you feel small in a way that no skyscraper ever has. Wherever it is, once you're there, you stay. There's no going back until it's over. No calling home, no rescue plan. You're on your own, and the silence settles around you quickly, heavier than you expect. At first, it's almost peaceful. You sit, you breathe, you listen. You notice the sounds you usually ignore. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the scurrying of small animals through the underbrush. The air smells sharper, cleaner, tinged with pine or dust or whatever the land offers. You feel alert, alive, like you're tuning into a frequency that's always been there but drowned out by the chaos of your usual life. For a while it feels good, but then the hunger sets in. Your stomach growls, sharp and insistent. You remember all the things you could be eating. Warm bread, greasy fries, even the sad leftovers sitting in the back of your fridge at home. Anything would do, but there's nothing. You press your hand to your stomach, try to ignore it, try to distract yourself, but it only gets worse. The hours crawl. The light changes slowly, painfully, and the gnawing inside you doesn't let up. By the second day, your head aches, your body feels weak, your thoughts are foggy. You wonder how much longer you can last. Sleep isn't much better. You lie on the ground, wrapped in whatever coverings you brought, listening to every crack of branches, every rustle in the dark. You imagine wolves circling, bears sniffing, shadows creeping closer. Your mind spins. You're hungry, tired, anxious, and alone. And that's the point. The silence and the emptiness break you down until there's nothing left but raw nerves. And in that rawness, visions come. At first, it's just dreams, half-formed images flickering in your exhausted mind. You see faces, shapes, flashes of light. You dismiss them as hunger hallucinations, but then they keep coming. Stronger, clearer, impossible to ignore. Animals appear. An eagle soaring overhead. A coyote sitting at the edge of your camp. A bear watching from the trees. They don't just look at you. They speak, not with words, but with presence, with meaning that settles into your bones. You wake, trembling, heart racing, convinced you've been touched by something beyond yourself. And maybe you have. Sometimes the visions are terrifying. You see death, decay, the faces of people you love twisted into something grotesque. Sometimes they're beautiful, filling you with warmth and light so strong it makes you weep. Sometimes they're confusing, layered with symbols you don't understand until years later. But whatever they are, they're never meaningless. Every image, every whisper, every animal that appears has weight. The elders will tell you that the spirits choose how to show themselves, and it's your job to carry the message back. And if nothing happens, if you sit there for days, hungry, weak, and all you see are stars and trees, that's a message too. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe you didn't open yourself enough. Maybe the spirits are telling you to come back later, stronger, humbler. Either way, you've been tested. You've endured. You've walked out into emptiness and returned. And that itself changes you. Back in camp, when it's over, you don't just collapse into food and sleep. You sit with the elders, and you tell them what you saw. They listen carefully, nodding, sometimes questioning, sometimes interpreting. They tell you what the eagle means, what the bear means, what the coyote means. They explain which paths are opening, which dangers are ahead, which responsibilities are now yours. You don't walk away with a diploma, but you walk away with a role. And everyone around you knows you've crossed a line. You're not just who you were before. You're someone who has endured the fast, survived the silence, and returned with a vision. Now imagine yourself in this. You who gets cranky when lunch is late. You who can't make it through a 2-hour meeting without a snack. You who sleeps with the hum of machines drowning out the silence. You wouldn't last a day. The hunger would send you running back. The loneliness would gnaw at you worse than the emptiness in your stomach. And if somehow you did stay, if you did see visions, you'd probably spend weeks afterward convincing yourself it was just your imagination, just a trick of your brain, just the result of too little food and too much fear. You'd dismiss what they see as sacred, because your world doesn't have room for messages carried on the backs of eagles and coyotes. But here, it matters. Here, it defines you. The dream quest isn't a game. It's not an experiment. It's the way you find who you are, the way you discover your place. And if that means hunger, fear, and night so long you think the sun has forgotten you, so be it. That's the cost. And the spirits, they don't come cheap. The prairie doesn't care about you. It never has, and it never will. You step out onto it and instantly realise you are nothing more than a dot in an ocean of grass. No mountains to hug you. No forest canopy to cover you. No cosy corners to crawl into. Just endless flatness stretching in every direction, waving with tall grass that hisses in the wind, a sky so wide it swallows you, and silence that makes your ears ring. If you thought being alone in a room was unsettling, wait until you're alone out here. The prairie makes sure you know just how small you are. This is where the vision quest takes place. Not in the shade of a tree, not hidden in a cave, but out here in the open, exposed to everything. The wind that cuts through your clothing, the sun that burns your skin, the night that chills you until your bones ache. You're given a spot, usually marked, sometimes chosen by an elder. And once you're there, you stay. There's no pacing, no wandering to distract yourself. You sit, you fast, you wait. The prairie is your entire world now, and it doesn't care whether you find comfort in it or not. At first, it seems manageable. The air smells sharp, clean, full of sage and grass. You feel the wind tugging at your hair, the sun warming your skin. It feels fresh, alive, almost energizing. You think maybe you can do this. Maybe sitting out here isn't so bad. But then the hours begin to stretch. There's no clock, no phone to glance at, no Netflix episode to mark the passage of time. Just the slow crawl of the sun across the sky, shadows stretching and shrinking, and the wind shifting from warm to cold. You realise quickly that time here isn't measured in minutes. It's measured in survival. The hunger sets in. You thought skipping breakfast was rough. You thought fasting for a blood test was torture. Out here, the absence of food isn't just uncomfortable, it's total. Your stomach growls until it feels like it's eating itself. Your head grows foggy, your body heavy, your thoughts scattered. You try to distract yourself by watching the horizon, by listening to the birds, by counting the stalks of grass swaying around you. But eventually, the emptiness drowns out everything else. It's you and your hunger, locked in a battle you're not sure you can win. And then the prairie turns on you. The sun, which felt warm and comforting in the morning, now beats down mercilessly. Your skin reddens, your lips crack, your throat dries, and you long for shade, for water, for anything cool, but there's nothing. Just open sky and endless grass. When the sun finally sinks, the cold rushes in so fast you can't believe it's the same place. You shiver, teeth chattering. Your thin coverings no match for the sharp bite of prairie night. Sleep doesn't come easily. Every rustle in the grass sounds like something crawling toward you. Every gust of wind feels like a reminder that you're alone, and you'll stay that way until the quest is over. The mind begins to unravel. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, they grind you down, scrape away the layers of distraction you usually hide behind. Your thoughts grow strange. You see shapes in the grass, faces in the stars. You hear whispers carried on the wind, words that don't sound like your own. At first you dismiss them, hallucinations, tricks of the brain, but then they grow stronger. Animals appear in your dreams. An eagle circles overhead, not just a bird, but a messenger, its cry echoing in your chest. A coyote trots along the horizon, glancing back at you with eyes that seem too knowing. A buffalo rises out of the grass in the distance, massive, solemn, unmoving. These aren't just animals, they're visions. You don't get to choose what appears. You don't get to say, "I'd like something comforting, please, nothing too scary." The spirits don't take requests. Sometimes you're shown beauty, an endless sky that opens into light, ancestors smiling at you, animals guiding you gently. Other times, you're dragged through terror, images of death, decay, pain, shadows pressing close. You shake, sweat, cry, plead, but you can't run. You can't leave. You endure, because that's the only option. And when the visions finally ease, when the storm passes, you're left hollow, trembling, and changed. The prairie is perfect for this. There's nothing to hide behind, nothing to distract you, nothing to protect you from yourself. It strips you bare, forces you to sit with your own fear, your own weakness, your own hunger, and in that rawness, the visions come. You're not just a person anymore. You're part of the grass, part of the wind, part of the sky. You dissolve into the landscape until you can't tell where you end and it begins. And when the spirits speak, through animals, through weather, through dreams, you don't doubt them. You can't. They feel too real, too heavy to dismiss. When it's over, when you finally stumble back to camp, you're not just tired, you're transformed. Your face is hollow, your body weak, but your eyes are different. You carry something back, something invisible but undeniable. You sit with the elders, tell them what you saw. They listen, nod, interpret. They tell you what it means that the eagle came, what it means that the coyote laughed, what it means that the buffalo stood silent. They shape your vision into direction, into identity, into responsibility. You don't just return, you return with a role. Now think about yourself. You, who gets restless after 10 minutes of silence. You, who complains when the Wi-Fi lags. You, who panics at the idea of being left alone without snacks. You would break out here. You'd last a few hours before the hunger, the silence, the sheer emptiness of the prairie chewed you up. You'd cry, scream, maybe run back before the visions even had a chance to arrive. And if they did arrive, you'd spend months telling yourself it wasn't real, just your brain messing with you, just a side effect of not eating. You'd miss the point entirely. But here, it isn't optional. Here it's life. The vision quest isn't entertainment. It's the bridge between childhood and adulthood, between confusion and clarity, between being just another body in the camp and becoming someone with purpose. The prairie doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your comfort. It takes everything away until all that's left is you and whatever the spirits choose to show you. And when you return, no one doubts what you've been through. They see it in your face, in your eyes, in the way you carry yourself. They know the prairie spoke to you. And that's enough. You're invited to sit closer, though invited might be the wrong word. It feels less like a choice and more like gravity pulling you forward, because in the centre of the circle is something that commands attention. It doesn't glow, it doesn't buzz, it doesn't come with neon lights telling you it's important. In fact, it looks simple. A bundle wrapped in animal hide, tied with cords, decorated with feathers, bones and stones. It could almost be mistaken for a bag of random trinkets if you didn't feel the weight of everyone's eyes on it. No one treats it like clutter. No one touches it casually. This is the shaman's bundle. And in this place, that means it isn't just a bag. It's a universe in miniature. The shaman reaches for it slowly, with the kind of care you'd use lifting something alive. You notice how even the elders straighten their backs, how the children fall silent, how the air itself seems to hold its breath. The bundle is laid out, unwrapped layer by layer, and each layer reveals objects that would mean nothing to you, but everything to them. A claw, a feather, a carved stone, a pouch of powder, a small rattle. Each piece has a story, a spirit, a power. Taken together they form the shaman's arsenal, not of weapons, but of connections. You're tempted to think of it like a toolbox, the way you might carry wrenches, screwdrivers, chargers, or cables. But this isn't a collection of gadgets. This isn't about fixing broken machines. This is about fixing broken people, broken communities, sometimes even broken relationships between humans and the unseen. And the bundle isn't assembled in a day. Each item is earned, given, discovered. A feather found in the right place at the right time. A stone revealed in a dream. A claw gifted after a hunt. To you, they're random objects. To the shaman, they're living allies, each one ready to be called on when needed. The rattle comes first. Small, round, filled with seeds or stones that clatter when shaken. In your world, you think of rattles as baby toys, cheap plastic distractions sold at a store. Here, the rattle is a voice. The sound cuts through the air, sharp and insistent. Not just noise, but a summons. Spirits, ancestors, animals, all are said to hear it. When the shaman shakes it, the circle tightens, the people listen, and the night itself seems to vibrate with its rhythm. You try to laugh it off, but the sound crawls under your skin, impossible to ignore. Then comes the feather. Not just any feather, not one plucked from a pillow or bought at a craft shop. This one is eagle, hawk, or owl. It's held upright, moved through the air, brushed gently over the heads or shoulders of people seeking healing. You watch as the feather passes over someone's body, the shaman's hand steady, the movement deliberate. You see the person sigh, relax, sometimes cry. It looks like nothing. It feels like everything. The feather isn't just a symbol. It's a channel, a way of moving energy, of directing breath, of clearing what doesn't belong. You'd call it placebo. They call it power. The stones are heavy, cool in the shaman's palm. Each one chosen not for beauty but for meaning. Some are red, some black, some carved with small markings. You don't know the difference, but the shaman does. A stone might be placed on someone's chest, or forehead, or stomach. It might be left in the fire until it glows red, then dropped into water to hiss and steam, releasing something more than heat. You watch, baffled, but the people nod knowingly. To them, stones remember. Stones speak. Stones carry the earth's oldest strength. The bundle always smells like herbs. Dried leaves crushed into powder, roots bundled with string, small pouches of mixtures you can't identify. Sage, cedar, sweetgrass, tobacco, each one burned, smoked, sprinkled, or blown into the air at just the right moment. The smoke wraps around the people, clings to their skin, fills their lungs. It's not perfume, it's not air freshener. It's cleansing, protective, a shield against whatever unseen thing is clawing at them. You cough, your modern lungs protesting the smoke, but no one else flinches. They breathe it in like medicine. Sometimes the shaman reaches deeper into the bundle and pulls out something stranger. A claw, sharp and curved, gleaming faintly in the firelight. Maybe it's bear, maybe it's mountain lion. To you, it's a relic of a hunt. To them, it's an ally, a reminder of the animal spirit, a connection to its strength. The claw might be pressed into someone's hand, brushed over their body, held above their head during a chant. You don't understand how it works, but you can feel the gravity of it. It's not a trinket, it's a presence. And then there are bones. Small, white, polished smooth with use. They rattle in the shaman's hand, tossed onto the ground, studied carefully. To you, it looks like fortune-telling, like guessing from patterns. But to the shaman, it's communication. The way the bones fall, the way they point, the shapes they form, it all speaks. Answers come not from logic, but from connection. You lean forward, trying to see what they see, but all you see are random lines. That's because the bones aren't speaking to you. They're speaking to the shaman. And the shaman listens. You notice something else. The bundle isn't just objects. It's a story of the shaman's life. Each piece marks an event, a lesson, a relationship. To carry the bundle is to carry responsibility, the weight of everyone who's ever been healed, guided, or protected with it. That's why it's never treated lightly. The bundle isn't property. It isn't even really the shaman's. It belongs to the spirits, the community, the ancestors. The shaman is just the caretaker, the one trusted to use it until it's passed on. Now picture yourself here. You, with your backpack full of gadgets, cables, earbuds, and snacks. You dig through your bag for your phone charger, while the shaman lays out eagle feathers and stones. You scroll through apps while they shake the rattle, calling spirits. You glance at your smart watch to check your pulse, while they place a stone on someone's chest, and you realise how ridiculous you look. Because all your tools are for distraction, for convenience. Their tools are for survival, for meaning, for connection. You've never felt more useless in your life. The ceremony builds, the rattle shakes, the feather moves, the smoke rises, the chants echo. The shaman moves with purpose, each item from the bundle flowing into the next. To you, it looks chaotic, even random. To them, it's precise, each motion carrying centuries of practice, each tool speaking its part in the conversation. And when it's done, when the bundle is wrapped again and tied shut, the people exhale, shoulders loosening, eyes bright. Something happened here. You can't explain it. You can barely describe it. But you feel it, the way the air feels lighter, the way the people look different. And you realise something else. The bundle isn't powerful because of the objects inside. It's powerful because of the relationships they represent. Relationships with animals, with plants, with stones, with ancestors, with spirits. The bundle is proof that the shaman has walked those paths, earned those allies, been trusted with their presence. You could steal the bundle, hide it in your bag, run away with it, and it wouldn't matter. The power isn't in your hands, it's in the connections you don't have. Without them, the objects are just objects. With them, they're everything. The shaman ties the bundle shut, sets it aside, and the people relax. The night moves on, the fire crackles, the stars wheel overhead. You sit there, still thinking about what you saw, about how a handful of feathers, stones, claws and bones could command more respect than all the machines and tools you've ever owned. You don't understand it, but you can't deny it. And maybe that's the point. The first thing that hits you isn't the sight of anything at all. It's the sound. A low, steady thump that crawls through the air. Not loud, not showy, but insistent. You feel it before you realise you're hearing it. A rhythm that settles into your chest and begins to match your heartbeat. It's a drum, simple and raw. Not the kind bolted together in a factory, not a polished kit gleaming under stage lights. Just a round frame stretched with animal hide, beaten with a stick wrapped in cloth. But once it starts, everything else fades into the background. The fire, the murmurs, the shifting bodies around you, it all falls in line with the drum. Then come the voices. Not pop songs with catchy hooks. Not polished choirs with perfect pitch. Not even the warbling of karaoke on a bad Friday night. These voices are rough, raw, sometimes cracked, sometimes trembling, but they cut straight into you. A single voice begins, high and wavering, the words unfamiliar but heavy with meaning. Then others join, weaving in and out, some louder, some softer, all carried on the same current. The song doesn't rise like an anthem. It circles. It repeats. It builds not toward a climax but toward a trance. You try to follow it, to predict where it's going, but it doesn't care about your expectations. It flows the way the night wants it to flow. And then the rattles, small, simple, filled with seeds or stones, shaken in time with the drum, creating a sound that's both sharp and soft, like rain hitting leaves. At first, it feels repetitive. You think, surely this is just noise. But the longer it goes on, the more it burrows into you. The rattle cuts through the air, slicing into your thoughts, breaking apart the chatter in your head. It's not decoration. It's not background. It's a tool, as deliberate as the drum, as meaningful as the song. Together they weave something you didn't realise could be woven, a soundscape that isn't just heard, but lived inside. You sit there, listening, trying not to squirm. Your modern ears are trained for variety, for playlists that shuffle every 3 minutes, for songs that keep you entertained with changes in melody, beats, effects. This isn't that. This is repetition, rhythm, cycle. It feels endless. You think you're bored. But then, slowly something shifts. You stop listening for change. You stop waiting for it to end. And once you stop resisting, you realise it's doing something else entirely. It's carrying you. The drum thumps, steady, unyielding. The rattles chatter, relentless, weaving around the beat. The voices rise, dip, circle again, each phrase repeated until it sinks past your ears, past your thoughts, straight into your bones. You feel heavy, then light, then not even sure you're in your own body anymore. The sound doesn't just fill the air, it fills you. For the people around you, this isn't performance. No one claps when the song ends. No one critiques the pitch or the rhythm. The song isn't for entertainment. It's for guidance. It's for calling spirits, for focusing the mind, for binding the group into a single current of breath and sound. The drum isn't an instrument. It's a heartbeat. The rattle isn't percussion. It's a voice of its own, speaking in rhythms older than words. You watch as someone sings with their eyes closed, their face tilted upward, sweat running down their skin, every note pulled from somewhere deep in their chest. Another person shakes a rattle with such intensity that you feel the vibration in your teeth. The drum keeps going, never faltering, never losing its grip. And the longer it continues, the more you realise how thin your usual wall of distractions is. In your world, you drown yourself in noise to keep silence away. Here, the noise becomes silence. The repetition so complete it scrubs away everything else. You start to understand why it matters. When someone takes a plant, drinks a brew, chews a cactus, eats a mushroom, whatever it is that opens the door, the songs, drums and rattles are there to guide them through. The sounds aren't random, they anchor. They pull people back when they drift too far, push them deeper when they resist, hold them steady when the visions shake them apart. The drum says, "You are still here." The rattle says, "The spirits are listening." The song says, "You are not alone." Sometimes the songs are old, handed down for generations. A melody taught by a grandfather to a child, carried through decades until it's sung again in the same rhythm, the same words, the same purpose. Sometimes they're new, born in the moment, pulled from the air as the spirits whisper them into the singer's mouth. Both kinds matter. Both kinds work. The point isn't perfection. The point is connection. You notice how the sound changes the people. Their shoulders drop, their eyes soften, their breathing matches the rhythm. Some sway gently, some rock forward and back, some hum under their breath. It looks ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, like the line between music and medicine has been erased. And when you feel the drum in your chest, the rattle in your ears, the song in your bones, you realise it's erasing that line for you too. Now imagine trying to explain this back in your world. You go home, sit down with your friends and say, "They sang the same phrase over and over, and it changed my entire sense of reality." They'd blink at you, maybe nod politely, maybe laugh. Because to them, music is entertainment, background, filler. They don't understand the difference between hearing a song and being carried by one. They don't understand what it means for sound to be the thread tying you to spirits, to ancestors, to the earth itself. And maybe you can't make them understand, because you had to be there, in that circle, in that firelight, with that drum pounding, to feel it. The ceremony goes on. Hours blur. You lose track of how many songs have passed, how many times the drum has circled through the same beat. Your mind drifts. Your body aches. Your stomach complains. But the sound never stops. And eventually you stop fighting it. You let the sound take you, carry you, dissolve you. And when the morning finally creeps in, when the first light softens the edges of the night, you realise you've been held in sound for longer than you thought possible. That's the way it works. Songs, drums, and rattles aren't decorations. They're the breath of ceremony. They're the heartbeat of the circle. They're the rope thrown into the storm, the compass in the wilderness, the medicine that doesn't come from a plant, but from the air itself. And once you've been inside it, once you've let it strip you down and rebuild you, you'll never hear a simple beat the same way again. You're led toward a small dome-shaped structure, and immediately your modern brain can't help itself. You think it looks like a poorly made tent, something you might see at a yard sale with the poles bent and the canvas sagging. But then you realise it's no tent. It's made of branches bent and tied into a frame, covered with hides or blankets until it's sealed tight. It's low to the ground, squat, almost cave-like, with an opening just big enough to crawl through on your hands and knees. And suddenly you're less amused. Because whatever this is, it's not casual. It feels serious in a way that makes your stomach tighten. This is the Sweat Lodge. And it's not a spa. Don't even let your mind wander there. There are no cucumber slices waiting for your eyes. No gentle flute music. No lavender-scented towels folded neatly in the corner. This is going to hurt. And it's supposed to. You're told to strip down to almost nothing. The air outside is already cool, the ground firm beneath your feet, and you hesitate. You're used to walls, to locks, to privacy. Here, none of that matters. Everyone does the same. Skin to skin, you're all equal now. You crouch low and crawl inside, and the moment you enter, the air changes. It's dark. Not dim. Dark. The kind of darkness where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. You shuffle forward, knees pressing into dirt, until you find a spot on the ground. The others pile in, shoulder to shoulder, bodies pressed close, breath hot already before anything even begins. Then the door flap closes. The little bit of outside light vanishes, and the darkness becomes total. You hear shuffling outside, murmurs, the crackle of fire. Then the sound of rocks being moved, heavy, glowing hot stones taken from the flames and carried carefully to the centre pit inside the lodge. You can't see them, but you feel the heat radiating immediately, pressing against your skin. And when water is poured over them, the hiss is deafening. Steam explodes upward, filling the small space, wrapping around you like a burning blanket. You gasp, cough, try to draw in a breath, but the air sears your throat, your lungs. You think you can't do it. And that's just the beginning. The shaman's voice cuts through the darkness. A chant begins, low and steady. Others join in, the sound vibrating in the cramped space, bouncing off the walls of blankets and hides. The drum thumps, rattles shake, voices rise. You close your eyes, though it makes no difference. There's nothing to see anyway. You try to focus on the rhythm, but all you can think about is the heat. It's unbearable. Sweat pours off you in sheets, stinging your eyes, dripping down your back, soaking the dirt beneath you. You shift uncomfortably, but there's nowhere to go. You're pressed in on all sides, every breath heavier than the last. The first wave of panic hits quickly. You're sure you can't last. Your body screams at you to escape, to claw your way out of the darkness and into the cool night air. But you can't. The door is closed. The ceremony isn't over. And leaving early isn't just rude, it's dangerous. Not physically dangerous for them, but spiritually dangerous for you. You'd be walking away from the cleansing, rejecting the test. And that's not something you want hanging over your head. So you stay. You breathe shallow, ragged breaths, fighting the urge to bolt, and the songs keep coming. The heat builds with every new stone brought in, with every splash of water poured. The air is so thick with steam, you feel like you're drowning in it. You press your forehead to the dirt, trying to find a pocket of cooler air near the ground. It helps for a second, but then the steam settles there too. You can't escape it. There is no escape. That's the point. The lodge isn't meant to make you comfortable. It's meant to break you down, to strip away everything you're holding on to. Your fear, your pride, your excuses, until there's nothing left but raw survival. And in that survival, visions come. The darkness plays tricks on your mind. Shadows swirl, shapes form in the steam, faces flicker in and out of your thoughts. You hear whispers that aren't part of the chant. Voices that don't belong to the people pressed against you. You think of your past, your mistakes, your regrets. They crawl into your head, uninvited, unavoidable, and then you feel them leave, carried out on the sweat dripping from your body, on the steam rising toward the roof. The pain doesn't vanish, but it shifts. It feels less like punishment, more like release. You notice the others around you. Some are shaking, some weeping, some singing louder than before. Their voices rise together, merging with the hiss of the steam, with the crackle of the fire outside, with the pounding in your chest. You realize this isn't just physical cleansing, it's spiritual. Every drop of sweat leaving your body is carrying something out with it. The anger you've been holding, the grief you've been hiding, the fear you've been carrying. It's all leaving drop by drop until the dirt beneath you is soaked with it. The rounds continue. Stones are brought in, more water poured, more steam rising. Each round feels like an eternity. You lose track of time, you lose track of your body, and the heat blurs everything. You sway, nearly collapse, but hands steady you, voices carry you. The group keeps you tethered. Alone, you'd never last. Together somehow you do, when the flap finally opens, when cool air rushes in and moonlight cuts through the darkness. You feel like you've been reborn. You stumble out, crawling on your hands and knees, skin slick, lungs raw, body trembling. You collapse onto the ground outside, gulping the night air like it's the sweetest thing you've ever tasted. The stars spin above you, the earth solid beneath you, and for the first time in a long time, you feel light. Empty, but in the best way. Cleansed. And that's the point. The sweat lodge isn't about comfort. It isn't about luxury. It's about suffering until you break, and then realizing that breaking was the only way to let go of everything you didn't need. You sit there in the dirt, exhausted, steaming in the night air, and you realize you've left something behind in that dark dome. Something heavy, something you didn't even know you were carrying. And though you can't name it, you know you're freer without it. The fire is the only light, and that's enough. You sit close, knees pulled up, watching flames twist and snap, sparks floating upward into the black sky. There's no electricity here, no lamps humming in the corner, no screens glowing in people's faces. Just fire. The same fire humans have been staring at for tens of thousands of years, hypnotized by the way it dances. And if you've ever found yourself zoning out in front of a campfire, losing track of time, you already know why it matters. The fire does something to you. It pulls you in, melts away the edges of thought, opens the door for stories to step through. Around you, people gather, leaning forward into the warmth, faces flickering orange and gold. The night presses close, filled with the sounds of insects and the occasional cry of an animal far away. But here, inside the ring of firelight, you feel held, safe. Not because there's nothing to fear, but because the fire draws everyone together. And when people are together, the stories begin. The storyteller doesn't stand on a stage, doesn't clear their throat dramatically, doesn't read from a book. They just begin, a low voice at first, steady and calm, words rolling out into the night. You don't understand the language, but it doesn't matter. The rhythm, the tone, the pauses, all of it tells you this is important. The others lean in, nodding, murmuring, sometimes laughing, sometimes gasping. You realise quickly that this isn't just entertainment. This is memory. This is history. This is instruction wrapped in story. The fire makes everything more vivid. Shadows flicker across the faces of the listeners. making them look like the characters being described. Sparks shoot upward, timed perfectly with the storyteller's words, as if the fire itself is part of the performance. You glance at the others, their eyes wide, their bodies swaying with the rhythm of the tale, and you realise you're not just hearing a story. You're inside it. The fire, the night, the words, they all fold together until you feel like you're walking the path the storyteller describes, seeing what they saw, meeting the spirits they met. Sometimes the stories are about animals, the trickster coyote who outsmarts himself, the eagle who carries prayers to the sky, the bear who punishes arrogance. Sometimes they're about ancestors, men and women who endured hunger, storms, battles, loss. Sometimes they're about spirits, gods, forces of nature who shape the world and still linger just beyond the firelight. And sometimes they're about the person sitting next to you, who once, years ago, went out on a vision quest and came back with a tale so strange no one ever forgot it. You think of your own world, where stories are consumed alone, earbuds in, eyes on a glowing rectangle, no one else around. Here stories aren't just for passing time, they're for binding people together. Everyone hears the same words, breathes the same smoke, feels the same heat. The story doesn't just live in the teller, it lives in the group. And that means it lasts. When the storyteller's voice fades, when the fire burns low, the story doesn't disappear. It's carried in the memory of every person present, ready to be told again, reshaped, passed on. And then something else happens. The stories don't stay in words, they spill into visions. Maybe it's the plants still moving through your bloodstream. Maybe it's the rhythm of the fire, the smoke, the night. But as you listen, the images come alive. You don't just hear about the coyote, you see him darting through the grass just beyond the circle. You don't just hear about the ancestor climbing the mountain, you feel your legs aching as you climb with him. You don't just hear about the spirits stepping out of the stars, you see their faces hovering in the smoke, watching, nodding, sometimes smiling. Shared visions aren't unusual here. When the fire burns, when the songs rise, when the stories weave through the night, people see things together. Someone gasps, points to the smoke, swears they saw a figure. Another nods, describing the same shape, the same movement. You blink, trying to catch it yourself, and sometimes you do. For a brief second, a shadow shifts in a way it shouldn't. A spark lingers too long. A face forms in the flame. You shake your head, tell yourself it's nothing. But when the others describe it in detail, word for word, what you thought you imagined, you stop doubting. You sit back, overwhelmed, realizing that firelight isn't just light, it's a doorway. The smoke carries stories upward. The flames reveal shapes hidden in the dark. The crackle provides rhythm for voices. The fire is the oldest screen, and you're watching it with an audience who knows exactly how to use it. Hours pass like this. Stories blend with songs, rattles shake, drums thump, laughter rises and falls. Sometimes people cry, their faces streaked with tears that shine in the firelight. Sometimes they laugh so hard they lean against each other, clutching their sides. Sometimes they sit silent, eyes closed, as if drifting between worlds. And through it all, the fire burns, steady, constant, feeding everything. When the last story ends, when the final sparks fade into the sky, no one claps. No one says, "Good story." They just sit in the warmth, breathing together, knowing that what they've shared isn't over. The story will live on in them, and the visions will linger in the smoke, waiting for the next fire to call him back. The first time it happens, you're not sure if you're dreaming, hallucinating, or finally losing your grip. You're sitting there, exhausted, sweat running down your body, smoke filling your lungs, vision still crawling across the edges of your vision from whatever plant you've been told to chew or drink, and suddenly there it is. An animal. Not out there in the ordinary sense, not padding through the grass or circling above your head, but closer. Inside your vision, inside your mind, looking at you with eyes that don't blink. Maybe it's a coyote, tail swishing, mouth curled in something between a grin and a warning. Maybe it's an eagle, wings spread so wide you feel the wind of them, even though you know no air is moving. Maybe it's a bear, hulking and massive, staring straight into you in a way that makes you forget to breathe. Whatever it is, you know instantly this isn't a random trick of your imagination. It feels too deliberate, too pointed. The others warned you about this. They told you the spirits come when you're ready, or when you're vulnerable enough that you can't block them anymore. And now, here you are, face to face with something that shouldn't be possible, but undeniably is. The animal doesn't speak in words, don't even try to force it into English. Its messages come in a flood of images, feelings, sensations. A flash of running across the prairie, the smell of blood on the wind, the dizzying height of a mountain peak, the cold ripple of water in a river. Each one lands in you like a stone, heavy with a meaning you don't fully understand yet. You want to ask questions, to demand answers, but that's not how this works. The animal isn't here to serve you. It's here to test you, to guide you, sometimes to mock you, always to change you. The coyote laughs. Not a cute giggle, but a sharp, grating sound that makes your skin prickle. It shows you your foolishness, your mistakes, your arrogance. It tears you down until you're forced to see yourself as you really are, clumsy and flawed, and then, if it's feeling generous, it shows you how to laugh at yourself too. The eagle doesn't laugh. It soars, pulls your vision upward, forces you to see everything from above. Your life, your choices, your struggles, they all look different when you're staring down from 1,000 feet in the air. The bear doesn't soar or laugh. The bear stands solid, grounding you, pressing its weight into you, until you feel steady, immovable, unshakable. Each animal brings a lesson, and the lesson isn't optional. For the people who live here, these encounters aren't accidents. They're part of the fabric of life. The animal spirits aren't separate from the animals you see every day. They're intertwined, reflections of the same power. The deer you see in the forest and the deer that steps into your vision at night are both deer, but one is flesh and bone, the other is spirit and meaning. One feeds your stomach, the other feeds your soul. Both matter, both demand respect. You, of course, don't know what to do. You've been raised to think animals are either pets, nuisances, or items on a menu. You've never been told that a wolf might show up in your dreams to hand you a truth you've been avoiding. So, when it happens, you panic. You want to dismiss it as a hallucination, a side effect, a weird dream. But the people here don't let you. They listen, they nod, they ask what the animal did, what it showed you, how you felt. They tell you the meaning. They tell you the responsibility. You can't shrug it off. The spirit has chosen to speak to you, and now you have to carry that. And carrying it isn't simple. If the eagle came, you're expected to rise above petty things, to see the bigger picture, to lead when needed. If the coyote came, you're expected to learn humility, to stop tripping over your own pride. If the bear came, you're expected to be a source of strength, to stand firm when others waver. Each spirit carries gifts, but each gift is a burden too. You don't just get the vision, you get the responsibility that comes with it. And that's not something you can post about online and then move on from. It follows you, shapes you, defines you. The encounters aren't always gentle. Sometimes the spirits come as predators, as forces that terrify you, shake you to your core. A snake curling around your body, hissing in your ear. A wolf circling, teeth bared, eyes glowing. A thunderbird flapping massive wings that crack the sky open with lightning. You feel fear like you've never felt before. The kind that makes you want to run even though there's nowhere to run to. And still, you can't look away. Because even in terror, there's meaning. The predator might be showing you your own fear, your own violence, your own hunger. The thunderbird might be showing you power, destruction, change. Fear doesn't mean it isn't real. Fear means it matters. Sometimes the visions are shared. You describe the coyote that mocked you, and someone else nods and says they saw him too. You describe the eagle's wings, and someone else says they felt the wind. It's unnerving, realizing that what you thought was only in your head spilled out into the circle for others to witness. But that's how it works. These aren't private hallucinations. They're encounters with beings bigger than you, beings that can show themselves to whoever they want, however they want. And when they choose to show themselves to many, it becomes proof. Proof that this isn't just your imagination. Proof that the spirits walk among you. You sit in the firelight, shaking, trying to process what you saw. Your mind scrambles for explanations, clings to the idea of fatigue, hunger, chemicals in your system. But deep down, you know that's not enough. You can't explain the weight of those eyes, the clarity of that message, the way it's already changing the way you think about yourself. And you realise that maybe, just maybe, you've met something that will never leave you. You thought the plants were serious. You thought the visions were all going to be grand and solemn. Towering eagles showing you destiny. Bears grounding you in strength. Ancestors whispering secrets in the firelight. And sometimes, yes, that's exactly what happens. But then comes something else. A presence that doesn't care about your seriousness, doesn't bow to your expectations, and doesn't offer lessons wrapped in reverent silence. Instead it shows up laughing, mocking, twisting everything sideways. This is the trickster. And the trickster doesn't care if you're ready. You'll know it when it happens. One moment you're staring at the fire, lost in spirals of light, and the next you're laughing. Not because anything funny has happened, not because someone told a joke, but because the world itself has flipped. Shapes move in ridiculous ways. People's faces stretch into caricatures. The fire flickers into absurd patterns that make no sense, and yet seem too perfectly timed to be random. You try to stop laughing, but you can't. It bubbles up uncontrollably, spilling out of you until your stomach hurts, your cheeks ache, and tears run down your face. And while you're gasping for breath, you realise you're not laughing alone. The trickster is laughing with you, through you, at you. Coyote is the one most people know. Always scheming, always playing games, always outsmarting himself. In visions, he appears sly and grinning, eyes glinting with mischief, tail flicking with impatience. He might show you something profound one second and trip you into humiliation the next. You might be soaring on the wings of revelation, only to fall flat on your face because you took yourself too seriously. And when you're sprawled in the dirt, covered in your own mistakes, Coyote will be there, laughing harder than anyone. It's cruel, but it's also liberating. You can't cling to pride when you're the butt of the joke. But Coyote isn't the only trickster. Raven, fox, rabbit, different people in different lands know different faces of the same force. Raven swoops in, clever and loud, stealing light or stealing food, disrupting everything. Fox slides round quietly, subtle in its mischief, teaching lessons you don't realise until later. Rabbit fools you with its softness, leading you into danger while pretending to be harmless. However they arrive, the message is the same. Don't get comfortable. Don't assume you understand. The moment you think you've got it all figured out, the trickster will tear it apart. And on psychedelics, that's exactly what happens. The plants open the door, the spirits step through, and somewhere in the middle of it all, the trickster slips in unnoticed. Suddenly the visions aren't solemn and orderly. They're chaotic, absurd, ridiculous. The fire turns into a clown, the drumbeat sounds like a joke, the songs twist into gibberish. You think you're receiving cosmic truth, but when you try to grab it, it slips away, leaving you with nonsense. You want to cry in frustration, but instead you find yourself laughing again, harder, louder, until you're doubled over. And in that laughter, the lesson hits. You're not in control. You never were. You start to see how it works. The trickster isn't just there to humiliate you for fun. The trickster is there to break your grip, to shatter the seriousness that weighs you down, to remind you that wisdom and foolishness are often the same thing dressed in different clothes. You cling to certainty, and the trickster tears it away. You cling to dignity, and the trickster makes you look ridiculous. You cling to control, and the trickster reminds you that control is the biggest joke of all. And it's not just visions. The trickster shows up in real life too. The shaman begins a chant, serious and focused, and suddenly their rattle breaks, seeds spilling all over the ground. Everyone bursts into laughter. A dog wanders into the ceremony, sits down in the middle of the circle, and starts scratching itself noisily. The fire pops and sends a spark directly onto someone's leg, making them yelp and dance. You think these are accidents, interruptions. The others know better. The trickster is reminding you that the sacred and the ridiculous aren't separate. They live side by side, and you can't have one without the other. Now imagine yourself in this. You, who likes to think you're rational, who pride yourself on holding it together. You're sitting in a circle, determined to be serious, to treat the ceremony with reverence, to show you can handle it. And then the trickster shows up. You laugh until you cry. You stumble. You lose track of your own body. You try to compose yourself, but the harder you try, the funnier it gets. You're a mess, and everyone knows it. And instead of pity, they laugh with you, because they've been there too. Everyone has. The trickster gets everyone eventually. The trickster's role in these journeys is dangerous but necessary. Without it, you'd cling too tightly to your visions, inflate your ego, imagine yourself chosen, special, untouchable. The trickster punctures that. It brings you back down, sometimes hard, sometimes cruel, but always with purpose. It reminds you that even in the midst of cosmic revelation, you're still a human, still clumsy, still laughable. And weirdly enough, that's freeing, because once you've laughed at yourself, Once you've been stripped of pride, you can see more clearly. You can listen more openly. You can carry the wisdom without turning it into arrogance. The plants teach in many ways. Through beauty, through terror, through silence. The trickster teaches through chaos, through laughter, through humiliation. And though you hate it in the moment, though you feel small and stupid, you carry the lesson with you long after. You remember the laughter. You remember the absurdity. You remember that even when the spirits show you greatness, you're never too great to trip over your own feet. You're not sitting in a clinic with white walls, sterile air, and a clipboard shoved in your hands while you wait for someone in a lab coat to glance at you for 7 minutes before writing a prescription. There's no fluorescent light buzzing overhead, no plastic chair designed to make you uncomfortable enough to leave quickly, no faint smell of disinfectant trying and failing to cover the staleness of recycled air. Instead, you're outside or under a simple shelter, or inside a small dark room that smells of smoke and earth. And the person you've come to see isn't wearing a stethoscope. They're unwrapping a bundle, sorting through herbs, or stirring a thick, bitter liquid over a fire. You're sick. Maybe it's your stomach, twisted in knots for weeks. Maybe it's your mind, heavy with grief or confusion. Maybe it's something you can't name, a weight that makes your chest tight and your nights restless. Whatever it is, you've come here because you believe, or at least hope, that plants can do what nothing else has managed to do. And the healer sitting across from you doesn't look nervous about the task. They look calm, steady, as if the sickness you're dragging around isn't a puzzle to them. It's just another knot that needs to be untied. The plants are everywhere, once you learn to see them. Leaves crushed into poultices, roots ground into powders, bark stripped and dried, flowers steeped into teas. Some are boiled down until they release their strength into dark brews that taste like punishment. Some are smoked, the fumes blown carefully into the air, or across your body, or into the crown of your head. Some are eaten raw, chewed slowly while you gag at the bitterness. And some aren't consumed at all. They're tied, hung, carried, placed under your bed, woven into bracelets, tucked into bundles. Not every cure comes through your mouth. Some come through your skin, your breath, your spirit. You start to realise how narrow your idea of medicine has been. In your world, medicine is a pill, a capsule, a syringe. It's one substance, measured in milligrams, designed to act on one part of your body in one specific way. Here, medicine is a conversation. It isn't about attacking the sickness like an enemy. It's about persuading it to leave. You don't just swallow something and hope for the best. You enter into a relationship with the plant, one where respect is required. If you think that sounds strange, try ignoring it, and see how quickly the healer reminds you that the plant doesn't work for arrogance. The ceremony begins. The healer picks up a rattle, shakes it slowly, the seeds inside clicking like bones. They blow smoke from tobacco over you, the curls drifting across your skin, your hair, your chest. You think it's symbolic, a gesture, but they believe it's more than that. The smoke is cleaning you, pushing away whatever's clinging to you that doesn't belong. You sit awkwardly, feeling both sceptical and strangely comforted, as if the act itself is telling your body it's being cared for. Then the drink is handed to you. It's dark, thick, and smells like earth mixed with something sharper, something you can't quite name. You hesitate, nose wrinkling, but the healer doesn't give you an out. You swallow. The bitterness floods your tongue, your throat, your stomach. It feels wrong, like swallowing dirt and bile. Your body protests instantly. Your stomach cramps. Your mouth waters with the threat of vomiting. And the healer nods. Good. That's the point. The purge is part of the medicine. You clutch your belly, bend forward, and retch. It's miserable, humiliating. But when it's over, when you're empty and gasping, you feel lighter. Not better, not cured, but as if some of the weight you carried has been dragged out of you. The plants don't stop at the stomach. Some flood your mind. You drink, you wait, and suddenly visions bloom. Colours shift, patterns spiral, shapes crawl into your sight. At first you think it's hallucination, the kind of thing you've read about in glossy magazines with catchy titles like The Future of Psychedelic Therapy. But it doesn't feel like a trick. It feels deliberate. The visions aren't random. They're aimed at you. They show you memories, mistakes, fears you've tried to bury. They drag them into the open, force you to look, force you to weep, to tremble, to admit truths you've been running from. And while you shake and cry, the healer sings, their voice rising and falling, guiding the plants, as if steering a river that threatens to sweep you away. Sometimes the healing is physical. Fever broken by a bitter tea, infection soothed by a poultice pressed against the wound, pain eased by smoke blown over the body. Sometimes it's emotional, grief eased by visions of ancestors who step out of the dark to remind you you're not alone. Sometimes it's spiritual, the sickness, not in your body but in your soul, clawed into place by envy, anger, fear. And for that, the plants don't just soothe, they rip. They tear the sickness out of you, no matter how much it hurts, and leave you shaking in the dirt, sweat-soaked and emptied, but undeniably changed. It isn't neat. It isn't clean. There's no polite recovery room with a nurse checking your vitals, no clipboard note that says, "Patient tolerated treatment well." Sometimes you scream. Sometimes you vomit until you're dry. Sometimes you shake so hard you feel like your bones will break. And yet, when it's over, when the firelight softens, when the healer finishes their song, you realise you've survived something you didn't think you could. And the sickness that brought you here doesn't feel the same anymore. It might not be gone completely, but it's been shifted, weakened, pushed out of its grip on you. You start to see why the plants are called medicine here, even when they look more like punishment. Because medicine isn't supposed to coddle you. It's supposed to change you. And sometimes the only way to change is through suffering. You wouldn't choose it. You'd avoid it at all costs. But when the healer looks at you afterward and says, "Now you are lighter," you know they're right. You think about how this would play out back home. You imagine walking into a doctor's office, being handed a cup of dark liquid, told to drink it, and then vomiting violently into a bucket while someone shakes a rattle over your head. You imagine explaining that to your insurance provider. You imagine the look on their face when you say the treatment involved visions of your dead grandmother and a snake that whispered forgiveness in your ear. They'd nod politely, write hallucination in your file, and suggest a referral to psychiatry. But here, no one doubts what you saw, what you felt, what left your body. Here, it's healing. The plants don't just cure individuals, they cure communities. A healer might drink with you, taking the sickness into themselves, purging it out so you can be free. The songs might be sung not just for you, but for everyone gathered, weaving strength into the entire group. The smoke doesn't just cleanse one body, it cleanses the circle, the lodge, the camp. Sickness isn't just about the body, it's about balance. And when balance is restored, everyone feels it. And you realise, sitting there, weak and trembling, that you've just gone through a kind of healing you'd never allow yourself in your normal life. You've been broken open, scraped clean, stitched back together, not with stitches, but with songs, smoke, and plants. You don't understand it, not fully, maybe not at all, but you know you'll never forget it. You're used to thinking that kids learn through schools, desks, and chalkboards. A schedule printed on paper, bells ringing, and a teacher at the front of the room pointing at diagrams taped to a wall. If they're lucky, there's a field trip once in a while, maybe a special guest with a slideshow. That's what education looks like where you come from. But here, in this world, learning doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Dreams aren't treated like random brain static or a highlight reel of the day's nonsense. Dreams are classrooms. Dreams are teachers. And if you're young, that's where some of your most important lessons are delivered. The night is quiet, save for the crackle of fire and the wind brushing over the grass. You curl up, wrapped in blankets or animal hides, the ground firm beneath you, the sky stretching endlessly overhead. The stars are thick, so many you feel smothered by them, and the moon hangs heavy, watching. Sleep doesn't come quickly. You toss, you turn, you listen to your own stomach growl, and then, without warning, you're somewhere else. A river stretches before you, black and shimmering in the moonlight. On the far bank, you see animals moving, shapes of deer, wolves, birds, creatures too strange to name. Some look at you, eyes glowing, bodies half lit. You hear voices, not from mouths but from everywhere at once. They speak words you don't know but somehow understand. They tell you where the fish will be tomorrow, where the buffalo will move when the season shifts, where danger waits in the hills. They tell you to remember. They tell you to carry it back. When you wake, your body stiff, your eyes crusted. You don't keep it to yourself. You tell your parents, your grandparents, the elders. They listen closely, nodding, asking questions. Did the deer speak? Did the bird fly east or west? Did the wolf look angry or calm? They weigh every detail, because to them, your dream isn't just your private little movie. It's a message. Maybe for you. Maybe for the whole community. If the dream warned of danger, the hunters listen. If it showed abundance, the camp prepares. If it offered lessons, the young pay attention. The dream belongs to everyone now. You're reminded that children aren't dismissed here. In your world, kids wake up from a dream about a talking animal, and adults pat their heads, smile and say, "That's nice, sweetheart," before moving on. Here, no one laughs. No one brushes it off. The animals in dreams are real. Their message is serious. A child who dreams of an eagle soaring high might be destined to lead. A child who dreams of a snake coiling through water might be warned about temptation or danger. Every dream is a thread, and the elders weave them into the larger fabric of understanding. Dreams also serve as guidance for the young who are beginning to take on responsibilities. When a boy is nearing his first hunt, he dreams of animals. If the animal shows itself clearly, calmly, the hunt will succeed. If it turns away, if it hides, it means the boy must wait, must prepare longer, must grow in patience before trying. When a girl comes of age, her dreams are listened to carefully. They might reveal her gifts, her roles, her responsibilities. Healing, teaching, storytelling. Dreams point the way before the waking world does. The lessons aren't always gentle. Dreams can terrify. A child might wake screaming, trembling, convinced that shadows clawed at them or a monstrous figure chased them. And no one says it was just a nightmare. Because it wasn't just a nightmare, it was a lesson. Maybe the child is being warned against arrogance, against wandering alone, against forgetting respect for the spirits. Fear teaches too. And the child isn't comforted with dismissal. They're comforted with explanation, with ritual, with smoke blown across their forehead, with songs sung softly until the shadows ease. You start to see how differently childhood feels here. Where you came from, kids are stuffed with facts and figures, tested, measured, graded. Here they're listened to. Their dreams carry weight, sometimes more weight than their waking words. And because of that, they learn to listen too. They learn to notice details, to remember symbols, to respect the strange and the unseen. They grow up knowing that the world isn't just what they see in daylight. It's also what comes to them in the dark. And sometimes the most important lessons come when they least expect it. A child grieving after the death of a parent dreams of that parent smiling, healthy, telling them not to be afraid. A child struggling to learn patience dreams of sitting beside an animal that refuses to move until dawn, teaching them the rhythm of waiting. A child reckless with anger dreams of fire, uncontrolled, burning through the grass, and wakes understanding the danger of letting rage loose. These aren't accidents. These are teachings. For you, the outsider, this is almost unbearable to take seriously. You wake from dreams about running late for work or showing up to school naked, and you roll your eyes, shake it off, pour coffee, and move on. Here, you'd be forced to stop, to sit down, to describe it in detail, to let others weigh its meaning. You'd resist, embarrassed, sure your dream about stumbling through a crowd with no clothes has no purpose, but someone would remind you. Maybe it does. Maybe it's telling you about shame, about pride, about being exposed when you're unprepared. You'd squirm, but you wouldn't be able to laugh it away. And that's what teaching through dreams does. It forces the young to see themselves as part of something bigger, to pay attention to signs, to take responsibility for meaning. Dreams aren't private escapes, they're shared lessons. And if you learn to listen to them early, you carry that skill your whole life. You think about your own childhood, where your teachers stood at the front of the room with charts and lectures, while your dreams, wild, vivid, terrifying, beautiful, were ignored, treated as childish nonsense. You think about what you might have learned if someone had asked, if someone had listened, if someone had told you that your dreams mattered. And for the first time, you feel the sting of what was missing. Here, the fire burns low, the children sleep, the elders wait for morning. And in that silence, in that dark, the dreams are already teaching. You thought the ceremonies were about peace, about connection, about gentle lessons whispered by animals and ancestors. And sometimes, yes, they are. But not everything in this world is friendly. Not every spirit is kind. Not every vision is a warm glow that hugs you from the inside. There's another side, one you don't want to meet but eventually will. Darkness. And here, darkness isn't just the absence of light. It's a presence. It's active. It creeps, claws, whispers. And when it shows up, people don't pretend it isn't there. They face it. You find yourself sitting in a circle, the fire glowing, the drums steady, the rattles shaking. Smoke curls upward, voices chant, the rhythm builds. At first it feels familiar, like the ceremonies you've already endured, the ones that dragged you through visions of animals and ancestors. But then something shifts. The fire seems too dim, shadows stretch too long, the air feels heavier, pressing down on your chest. You glance around and see it in the others too, their shoulders tense, their eyes darting nervously. They know what's coming. The healer's voice rises sharp and commanding. The rattle shakes harder, faster. The drum pounds like a warning. And suddenly you feel it. A cold creeping at the edges of the circle, moving closer, sliding into the space where warmth should be. It's not your imagination. Everyone else feels it too. Darkness has arrived. In your world you'd call this superstition. You'd think they're spooking themselves with stories. But you're not sitting safely in your living room with your lights on. You're here, in the dirt, in the night, with no escape, and you feel it. Something heavy, unseen, watching. The hairs on your arms rise. Your stomach twists. And when you try to laugh it off, the laugh dies in your throat. This isn't funny. The healer begins the battle. They shake the rattle furiously, the seeds inside clattering like bones. They blow smoke into the air, sharp clouds that hang heavy, twisting as if alive. They chant louder, their voice cutting through the night, each word sharp, deliberate like a blade. They're not praying gently. They're commanding. They're driving something out. You feel the tension crackle in the air, see the people around you swaying, chanting with the healer, their voices layering into a wall of sound. And then it hits you. A rush of fear so strong it nearly knocks you over. Images slam into your head. Faces twisted, eyes hollow, shadows reaching for you. You clutch your chest, gasp for breath. Sure you're about to collapse. You're not the only one. Someone across the circle cries out, sobbing uncontrollably. Another shakes, their body jerking violently, as if something is clawing at them from the inside. The healer doesn't stop. They rattle, chant, blow smoke, their face set in fierce determination. This is the battle. You realise quickly that this isn't metaphorical. They're not saying darkness to mean sadness or confusion. They mean something real, something alive. Spirits that feed on pain, sickness that clings like a shadow, forces that slip into the cracks when people are weak. And the ceremony is war. Not with swords or spears, but with smoke, with sound, with song, with sheer will. You watch as the healer moves from person to person, pressing feathers against foreheads, brushing smoke over shoulders, shaking the rattle violently near ears. The person sobbing calms, their breath slowing. The one shaking stills, sweat dripping down their face. You feel the weight lift slightly from your own chest, though not completely. The battle isn't over. The fire roars suddenly, sparks shooting upwards, and for a moment the shadows seem to recoil. You don't know if it's coincidence or something else, but the timing is too perfect. The people take it as a sign. The darkness is being pushed back. And then, just when you think it's ending, it surges again. A sound fills your ears, low and guttural. Not human, not animal, something else. You glance wildly around, but no one else seems surprised. They've heard it before. They keep chanting, louder now, pushing back with everything they have. The healer's voice cracks, but doesn't stop. They pour water on the fire, steam hissing upward, filling the lodge with thick clouds. The darkness swirls, presses close, but the people don't break. They keep singing, rattling, drumming, blowing smoke. You, meanwhile, are falling apart. Your body shakes, your mind spins, your fear chokes you. You want to run, to escape, to get away from whatever this is. But where would you go? Out into the night, where the darkness waits thicker, heavier, hungrier. You're trapped, forced to face it, forced to sit with it. And in that panic, in that surrender, something changes. The fear shifts. You realise the darkness isn't here to destroy you. It's here to test you, to show you what you're carrying inside. The sickness, the shame, the grief. You've been holding them like anchors. And now they're dragged into the open, made visible, made unbearable, until you have no choice but to let them go. The battle rages on for what feels like hours. Sweat pours, voices crack, the air grows thick with smoke and heat, and then slowly the pressure lifts. The fire steadies. The shadows retreat. The air grows lighter. People breathe easier. The crying quiets. The shaking stops. You realise the battle is ending. Not because anyone won in the way you think of winning, but because balance has been restored. The darkness has been pushed back, for now. You collapse against the ground, exhausted, drenched in sweat, lungs aching. You feel hollow, scraped out, as if something heavy has been pulled from you. Around you, others slump too, their faces streaked with tears, their bodies trembling with fatigue. And yet in their eyes you see relief, you see gratitude. They've survived the battle, and they're lighter for it. You think about your own world, where darkness is something you ignore, push aside, medicate into silence. Here, it's faced directly. It's named, confronted, fought with everything available. Smoke, sound, spirit, community. And you realise that maybe, just maybe, there's something in that you've been missing. The night stretches on, the fire burns low, the people sit quietly, breathing together. No one says, it's over, because it's never over. The darkness always returns, in time. But when it does, they'll be ready. And next time, you will be too. You've spent all this time learning what it feels like to sit in a sweat lodge, to gag down bitter drinks, to see animals step into your dreams, to laugh and stumble when the trickster decides to make a fool out of you. You've survived the fire, the fasting, the visions. You've seen how much weight the people here give to plants, not as hobbies, not as habits, but as relationships. And then comes the moment when all of it begins to unravel, because eventually outsiders arrive. And outsiders always bring two things: curiosity and control. The first encounters are almost predictable. A few explorers, soldiers, missionaries, fur traders. They see the ceremonies, hear the songs, smell the smoke. They watch people swallow strange brews, chew cactus, puff on pipes, and they don't know what to make of it. Some laugh, dismissing it as savage nonsense. Others panic, convinced it's demonic. A few are intrigued, desperate to try it themselves. And just like that, the sacred plants become targets of fascination, of fear, and eventually of suppression. You see it play out again and again. Missionaries arrive with crosses and holy books, and they don't see visions when someone drinks ayahuasca or eats peyote. They see witchcraft. They see devil worship. They see a threat to the order they're trying to impose. They warn the people to stop, to repent, to abandon their ceremonies. And when warnings don't work, they use force. Plants that once carried prayers are burned. Bundles are confiscated. Drums and rattles are smashed. The lodge is torn down. The fire is stamped out. You sit there, stunned, watching centuries of tradition dismantled in hours. To you, it looks like cultural erasure. To the colonizers, it looks like progress. They believe they're saving souls, bringing civilization, wiping away superstition. You know better, but your voice doesn't matter. Not here. The suppression isn't just spiritual, it's legal. Laws are written banning the use of peyote, banning ceremonies, banning gatherings. If someone is caught, they're punished, imprisoned, beaten. Children are taken from families, placed into boarding schools where their language, songs and stories are stripped away. You imagine yourself being dragged from everything you've known, told your dreams mean nothing, your visions are lies, your plants are poison. You're punished for speaking your own tongue. You're punished for praying the way your people prayed for centuries. And you begin to understand why the ceremonies started moving into the shadows. Still, the plants don't vanish. They survive underground. Hidden lodges, secret fires, ceremonies whispered about but never spoken openly. A small circle in the woods, a pipe lit quietly at dawn, a cactus chewed in silence. The people carry on, even when it's dangerous, even when they know they could be punished. Because the plants aren't just habits to quit, they're lifelines, they're identities. To stop using them will be to stop being themselves. But the hypocrisy cuts deepest when you see how outsiders twist the very same plants. Tobacco, once sacred, is stripped of meaning, bred into fields, rolled into millions of cigarettes, sold as profit, and eventually blamed for sickness. Peyote, once the centre of visions and healing, is outlawed, while alcohol, brought by the colonizers, devastating in its effects, is legalized, taxed, and pushed relentlessly. You look at that trade, that cruel imbalance, and you feel your stomach turn. Sacred plants suppressed, poison encouraged, all in the name of control. And yet the plants refuse to disappear. They keep growing, keep pushing up through cracks, keep finding their way into hands, willing to risk everything to keep the traditions alive. A grandmother keeps a small pouch of dried leaves hidden in her clothing, pulling it out only when the moment is right. A group of men meet at night, sharing smoke in silence, their eyes watchful for anyone who might betray them. Children are told stories in whispers, told to remember, told to carry it forward even if they can't speak of it openly. The plants endure. You think about how this looks in your own world. Today, psychedelics are paraded in glossy magazines, marketed as the future of mental health, discussed in podcasts, studied in labs, sold at overpriced retreats. Wealthy outsiders sip ayahuasca in the jungle, with guides who sometimes know the songs, sometimes don't. Entrepreneurs patent compounds that were once offered freely by the earth. Scientists publish studies proving what indigenous people said for centuries, that these plants heal, guide, connect. And all the while, the people who carried the plants through suppression, through punishment, through erasure, are still fighting for the right to use them without fear. It makes you realize just how crooked the system is. Centuries ago, the ceremonies were criminalized, mocked, and destroyed. Now they're commodified, packaged, and sold. And the people who lived closest to the plants, who held their wisdom in bundles, songs, and stories, are told to get in line while others profit from what they never abandoned. Sitting there, you feel the anger rising. You think of the fires stamped out, the songs silenced, the children punished. You think of the laws still hanging over peyote use, of the battles in courtrooms, of the endless debate about whether indigenous people should be allowed to keep practicing what they always practiced. And you know the answer is obvious. Of course they should. But when has obvious ever been enough? The suppression of sacred plants isn't just history. It lingers. It's in the fear that someone might see smoke rising from a lodge and call the authorities. It's in the hesitation before lighting a pipe, before pouring water on the stones, before chewing the cactus. It's in the knowledge that the ceremony, no matter how sacred, might still be seen as crime. And yet, despite all of it, the ceremonies go on. Quietly, stubbornly, defiantly. Because the plants, like the people, refuse to be erased. You've followed the trail this far, through fire and fasting, through sickness and smoke, through visions of animals and laughter of tricksters. You've seen how ceremonies stretched into the night, how songs circled endlessly, how sweat and tears mingled on the dirt floor of lodges. You've also seen how outsiders tried to stamp it all out, how sacred plants were outlawed, how songs were silenced, how children were punished for speaking the very words their ancestors taught them. And yet, here you are, sitting again by the fire, watching the smoke rise, realising that none of it ever really disappeared. It survived. Barely at times, yes, hidden, scarred, driven underground. But it survived. Survival here isn't a clean, triumphant thing. It's not the kind of story you'd see in a movie where the heroes stand tall, victorious, as the credits roll. It's messy. It looks like grandmothers hiding bundles of sage under their clothing, pulling them out only when no one is watching. It looks like children whispered to at night, taught prayers in secret, told never to repeat them where teachers could hear. It looks like ceremonies held in the woods, far from roads, with lookouts posted just in case someone came to break it up. Survival meant caution, meant sacrifice, meant carrying traditions like fragile flames, cupped in hands, protected against every gust of wind that tried to snuff them out. And yet those flames never went out. They were passed quietly, hand to hand, generation to generation, sometimes dim, sometimes nearly invisible, but always alive. The people carried them. The plants carried them too, growing stubbornly, pushing up through cracks, refusing to vanish no matter how many times they were burned or banned. Tobacco still grew. Peyote still bloomed. Mushrooms still appeared after the rains. Ayahuasca still twined through the jungle. The plants don't obey laws. They don't care about bans. They wait, patient, until someone is ready to listen again. Now you sit in a world where revival is happening, though not neatly, not evenly. You hear songs sung again in public, no longer just in secret. You see sweat lodges rebuilt, fires lit openly, communities gathering without as much fear of interruption. You hear young people speaking the words their grandparents weren't allowed to say, singing the songs their ancestors were beaten for singing. And you realise the echo isn't quiet anymore. It's rising, louder each year, demanding to be heard. But revival isn't simple either. It comes with wounds. The scars of suppression don't vanish just because a law is repealed or a ceremony is permitted. The trauma lingers in families, in communities, in bodies. Addiction, grief, disconnection. They all run deep. Revival isn't about going back to some untouched past. It's about stitching together what was torn, reweaving traditions in a world that has changed too much to pretend nothing happened. You see a young man sitting in a lodge, sweating, praying, listening to the songs, and you realise he's the first in 3 generations to sit there without fear. That's survival, but it's also revival. And then there's the irony you can't ignore. While indigenous people fight to keep their ceremonies alive, the outside world is rediscovering psychedelics like it just invented them. Ayahuasca retreats for tourists. Mushrooms decriminalised in some cities. Psychedelic therapy clinics opening with white walls, lab coats, and prices that would make your stomach turn. Studies published in glossy journals about the healing power of psilocybin, peyote, ayahuasca, all the things indigenous people already knew, carried, suffered to protect. And yet, so often, the credit skips past them. The plants are praised, the scientists are praised, the communities that never abandoned them are ignored, or worse, told to step aside while others profit. You sit with that discomfort, staring into the fire, realizing that survival doesn't mean recognition. Revival doesn't erase injustice. The echo of the plants today is loud, yes, but whose voice is being amplified? Who gets to carry the plants into the future? Who is erased even as the plants are celebrated? These questions hang in the smoke, unresolved, demanding answers no one wants to give. Still, the revival is real. You see it in gatherings where drums beat again, where songs rise again, where children are taught openly what was once forbidden. You see it in activists fighting for the protection of peyote, for the right to gather it without interference, for the recognition that these plants aren't just natural resources to be harvested, but relatives, sacred beings. You see it in elders smiling as they pass the pipe, knowing it will continue, knowing the flame survived long enough to be carried forward. And you can't help but think about yourself, stumbling through this whole journey, gagging on bitter brews, sweating in suffocating lodges, trembling under visions you didn't want. You know you wouldn't have lasted long if you'd been the one forced to keep these traditions alive during centuries of suppression. You would have broken, caved, given up. But they didn't. And that survival, that revival, means you get to sit here now, in the echo of everything that refused to die. The echo isn't quiet. It's in the songs that keep circling. It's in the smoke that rises with every ceremony. It's in the children who wake from dreams and are told their visions matter. It's in the plants that keep growing, patient, waiting. You feel it surround you, press into your skin, settle into your lungs with every breath of smoke. And for once, you don't fight it. You sit, you breathe, you listen. The echo is here, and it isn't going anywhere. The fire burns low, embers glowing red, cracking softly as they fall in on themselves. The smoke rises slower now, no longer carrying chants or prayers, just the steady sigh of wood becoming ash. Around you, people are quiet, not because they've run out of things to say, but because nothing more needs to be said. The plants have already spoken. The dreams have already shown what they needed to show. The echoes of drums and rattles are still in your chest, vibrating faintly like a memory you can't shake. You sit back, tired, your body heavy, your mind drifting somewhere between wake and sleep. You think about everything you've stumbled through, visions that terrified you, laughter that embarrassed you, heat that nearly broke you, smoke that burned your throat, bitterness that turned your stomach. You think about how much you complained, how much you doubted, how certain you were that none of this made sense. And then you think about how you're still here, still breathing, still carrying some trace of it inside you, even if you don't understand it. The night stretches, endless, the stars thick above you, too many to count. The air cools, settling over your skin, a reminder that morning will come whether you're ready or not. You hear the quiet shifting of people settling down, a cough, a sigh, the shuffle of feet in the dirt. No one announces an ending, No one calls it finished. It just fades, the way all things fade, into silence. And you realise that's what survival feels like. Not triumphant, not clean, just quiet, just steady, just still here, when it would have been easier not to be. The smoke drifts upward, vanishing into the night, and you follow it with your eyes until it disappears. You close your eyes too, letting the darkness press in, and for once, you don't fight it. You let it hold you, the way it's held every person who sat here before you, the way it will hold every person after you. The echo remains low and steady somewhere in your chest. You carry it with you now, whether you want to or not.